Meeting of the Garden Grove City Council. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember T. Wynn.
Here.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kloppenstein.
Here.
Councilmember K. Wynn.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beard.
Here.
And Mayor Jones.
Here. We had a closed session tonight, and there was no reportable action. To say that. Can I ask Kingsley Okereke to lead us in the invocation, and Councilmember Stephanie Kloppenstein to do the pledge?
Okay, Heavenly Father, we humbly ask that you bless everyone assembled here this evening and the work we seek to do. Help us to work in harmony as we seek to make the best decisions for our community. Purify our intentions, strengthen our purpose, and Lord, grant that in serving our community, we may serve you. Amen.
Please place the flag and put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us on to presentations. We do have a community spotlight.
Yes, we do. We have a community spotlight in recognition of the local students selected as ambassadors to represent Garden Grove in the 29th Annual Sister City Exchange Program to Anyang, South Korea. And Mr. Okereke will recite the spotlight.
All right, thank you, Madam City Clerk. The City of Garden Grove City Council is pleased to acknowledge 10 outstanding local students selected as ambassadors to represent the City of Garden Grove in the 29th Annual Sister City Exchange Program to Anyang, South Korea. Would the students please come forward when I call your name? The Garden Grove Sister City Association has deepened the city's understanding of and ties with the Republic of South Korea. Through the Sister City Exchange program, Garden Grove's youth have a unique opportunity to learn about the Korean culture firsthand. They see the country's beautiful sights, but most importantly, experience the warm hospitality that South Korea has to offer. The students, along with their chaperones, Veronica Avila and Mina Yo, will serve as Garden Grove's Goodwill Ambassadors during their 10-day visit. During their visit, they will be staying with Korean families who have graciously opened their homes and hearts to host the students and chaperones. At this time, I'd like to give a brief introduction of each of the students. Sheila Oswara. Is Sheila here? Okay. Sheila is a senior at Santiago High School. Sheila hopes to major in mechanical engineering or pharmaceutical sciences at UC Berkeley or San Francisco State University. Next, I have Caitlin Bowie. Caitlin, a senior at Pacifica High School, hopes to major in English at Yale University. Double clap on that one. Sulayan Kamsin? Did I say that right? Sulayan is a junior at Boza Grande High School, and she hopes to major in global affairs or journalism at USC, and she's also applying to UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, UC Berkeley, and I should say, New York University when that time comes. Olivia Ernst. A senior at Pacifica High School, Olivia hopes to major in mechanical engineering at California Institute of Technology or at UC Berkeley. Jessica Guevara. All right. Jessica is a senior at Garden Grove High School, and she hopes to major in business and Spanish at Cal State Channel Island or at Cal State Domingos Hills. And next I have Frank Lee. A senior at Los Amigos High School, Frank hopes to major in psychology at UC Riverside or at Cal State Long Beach. And Jennifer Navarrete. Jennifer is a senior at Santiago High School, and she hopes to major in human biology at Stanford University. Caitlin Wynn. Caitlin, a senior at Garden Grove High School, hopes to major in biological sciences at UC Irvine. Alyssa Arn. Alyssa is a senior at Garden Grove High School, and she hopes to major in graphic design or journalism at UC Berkeley or at Cal State LA. And last but not the least, Cody Tran. A senior at Pacifica High School, Cody hopes to major in neuroscience and computer science at Johns Hopkins University, Stanford University, UC Berkeley, or at UCLA. The city is mighty proud to have such excellent diplomats representing us in Anyang. The Mayor and City Council would like to present each of you with a certificate of recognition and a filled City of Garden Grove bag to present to your host families on our behalf. We wish you a safe and memorable trip to South Korea. Congratulations.
Thank you. Help me with that.
I called Dave on the one that just
That's good.
Thank you.
This is actually in order. That's good. Have a blast, everyone. Thank you. So now what? Are we gonna do some pictures? Yeah. Can you guys kind of squeeze back in here and we'll all? Yeah. Can you guys just kind of pile in
One more. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Cool. You guys, we wish that you have a great time over there, and please go represent Garden Grove well and just have a blast. Okay, this brings us to oral communications. I've got a handful of cards, starting with Tony Flores.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. I'm Tony Flores. Just want to talk about a couple of things. For quite some time now, you've been seen not answering any of my emails regarding crime. At some point in time, it was going to be affecting some of you or all of you. This time it affected me and actually Mayor Jones. A certain family had called and had to wait for over an hour to get a response of a potential kidnapping. Our officers were tied up. Our resources, as you know, we don't have a whole lot. But this family was waiting for over an hour. They finally called Mayor Jones. I got a phone call as well. We contacted the chief and Captain DeRay. Thank goodness they were around. But the question is, what happens to folks who may not know somebody, may not know any of their council members? Actually, half the folks probably don't even know your names right now. But it's an intense situation when that happens, and I'm sure, Mayor, that grabbed your attention, because if my emails haven't, I hope that this grabbed your attention. Now, granted, we've had some issues coming out of Sacramento, and we've got people running around the streets that need to be locked up, but our resources, our numbers for Garden Grove, you keep putting more and more buildings, more and more living spaces in here. We get more and more crowded. We don't have the law enforcement personnel to address that. I think you need to start taking a look at that. Now, this family, very, very dear to my heart. I've known most of them for most of my life, and I know you've known them for a while as well. But to get a phone call from folks like that and hearing the panic in their voice is very unsettling. So we did what we could, again, but thank goodness for the Garden Grove PD. They had to get pulled off of one major incident and on to this one. But I guess one of the things that I like to bring up off of that is that we've got some issues going on in Sacramento. You know, we've got a governor who apparently hasn't read our Constitution or the Constitution of California. In the past, we've written to, say, cities like Riverside, complain about some of the things we're doing. I suggest that this council give strong consideration to draft a letter to Governor Brown and tell him that he's got to rethink his sanctuary state policy, because this is nonsense. It's really screwing the Americans here. Thank you. The Americans are being pushed aside. We're all Americans. And I'm talking about, folks that are crossing the illegal. I'm talking about the Americans here. Okay, the folks that have done it right, that are born here or coming here correctly. It's a campaign year. Whether I decide to run against you or run against you. Or if I don't run at all, I'm either going to campaign for you or I'll be campaigning against you. But let's get it together, folks. Thank you.
Lee Ostendorf.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, I am Lee Ostendorf. I operate the Farmers Market on Main Street every Sunday. We've been there since 2010. And we've recently just had a meeting Thursday with the DBA, and they have come forward with support and willing to partner to bring monthly events, family events, to the farmers market and to Main Street. I will be in the audience, so we can, if you need to ask me any questions when the item comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Raber. Raymond.
Hi, Mayor and Council. This is another reason why I've come to the Council is because of the Property Act. Please write this down, because I want you guys to go over there and look at this property at 12782 Bailey Street. It's right off of Tiffany and Valley View. This property has been vacant for 8 years, since 2010. 2009, the city had to go ahead and put a new sewage pump in, and they drilled underneath the house, and due to the fact of the water table being so high, that house collapsed. And so the city bought another house in Westminster, and now the slot's been vacant. Since then, that lot's been sold for $248,000. My problem is what is being done on that property and what limited knowledge I have on how a house is built. For example, they've already trucked in 12 loads of dirt, did not remove any dirt at all, didn't go ahead and remove dirt to put gravel down because of the water table. And because of that, now the land itself is between 8 inches and almost 2 feet higher than it was before, and the block fence that separates me from that property was built in 1964. So I'm very, very worried that fence might not be able to take the pressure of additional pressure against it from the base. Second of all, when I came back from Vegas yesterday and I got to my house, I saw this tarp attached to my fence. And when I say my fence, the 1964 little small 3-foot fence, there's a plastic fence attached to it. That's on our side. So there was a tarp attached to it with non-galvanized wire. Because of the non-galvanized wire, now I have damage to my fence. I did call the police, and per what Tony said, the police takes a while to come out. An hour and a half later, I called in for trespassing and for damage to my property, and it still took them an hour and a half to come to my property. And I've had other issues with the Garden Grove Police Department with the way they conduct stuff, but I'm not here for that. I'm here for this given property at 12782 Bailey, okay? Very, very upsetting that when you come home from a fun time in Vegas and you see that your property has been damaged. Now, in the process, I had to come back over to the City Hall today to see if there was another work permit taken out, and the answer was no. The only permit on the property is to go ahead and do the grading of the property. What does the grading entail? Well, I would think to go ahead and make sure that the soil is strong enough to hold the house. But as of right now, I have not seen anybody come out there for soil content. The other thing is they're putting a 2,700 square foot house with a 3-car garage, and per the city, they're going to make the single driveway into a double driveway. That does not fit into the city. My mom has been there since '79. Her husband owned the house in '64. My mom is accustomed to being 78 years old, waking up and taking the dog out to do its little thing with her nightgown on, or whatever the case may be. Now she's going to have to change her lifestyle because the city might be approving a 2-story house to be put next to us. When my stepfather bought the house in '64, he was the first person to live in the track. He bought a house with both houses on each side being single-story. Now let's talk more about the word single. That also, the track is a single-family dwelling. Single-family, not multifamily. So what is the city going to do to make sure that we don't have grandma, grandpa, kids, grandkids, and everybody else coming into that property? But I'm here on the focus of the damage done to my fence, that the city told the owner/contractor to put up a tarp. The misunderstanding was the tarp that was facing Valley View that's been decapitated since, I don't know, let's say 5 years or so. They had no permission to put this tarp on my fence and damage it. Thank you.
Thank you. John Hall.
Honorable Mayor, honorable members of the City Council, honorable staff. My name is John Holm. My wife and I have been residents for 37 years here in Garden Grove, and I'm here to talk about item 3A, and that's the farmer's market on Sunday. I know some of you are thinking, how do I keep such a trim figure? It's the fact that I go down every Sunday and I buy this food, and it's delicious food. It's certified by the state of California, fruit, etc. They don't make a lot of money. They barely get by. I know legal will tell you otherwise, but you have waived the $1,500 fee, tax fee, and that's been a good investment on your part. And I would encourage you to do the same thing now, to waive that fee. And also, join me, Fat, you especially. I know you're starting to get a little bit portly there. Come down and walk down to the city on Sunday, and I'll treat you to an orange and other food, and they have great coffee, too. Thank you.
Zach Barrett. fat looks poorly, I'd hate to think what I look like.
I'm gonna start cowering down.
Well, hello, everybody. Good evening.
So, Zach,
John, I'd like to thank you for taking the time in the meetings that we discussed on the sewer lateral issue that we got going, but also good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and staff. Never been on this side before, and Stephanie and District 5. So what I'm going to bring up is a tough situation we have to talk about. And I was part of the group that structured the sewer lateral and the water service line responsibility. As we have it now, the water service laterals going from the meter to the trunk main is the city's responsibility. If it breaks, city comes out and repairs it. Did that for 38 years. So somewhere during the engineer's report, when we were doing the water sewer master plan, somewhere it got switched to the sewer laterals that go from curb face to the trunk main was the city's responsibility. Well, it's not no more. Somewhere in your guys' provisions, it was rewritten, and now it's the homeowner's responsibility. To replace a line or have it jacked with another pipe is $15,000. So I don't think the homeowners are aware that that ordinance was changed, and if it was, they should be here tonight or in the future to bring it to their elected officials. It needs to be rewritten back. Or allocate a fund. I talked to Mr. Bill Murray briefly tonight, and he says they have about 10 breaks a year. Allocate 15,000 times 10 for a year on responsibility of repairing those breaks in the sewer lines, because we need to stay what's right. We need to do what's right, and that's the right thing to do. But just wanted to bring that to your attention tonight. Chris, it was nice talking to you again. John, again, thank you for your time. Steve Jones, you're all right, buddy. And Mr. Kingsley, it was a great thing to see you guys tonight. I miss you guys. It's been 4 years since I retired. And lived in Garden Grove now 60 years, coming up June 25th. And going to run for Orange County Water District Board coming up, again against Dina. So when you see my name, make sure you vote for me, okay? Thank you very much.
thanks, Zach. Maureen Blackman. Here she is.
Hi, my name is Maureen Blackman. Mayor, council, staff, city, everybody, hello. So many important issues that face, this almost seems silly to talk about, is bus benches. But when we have so many really serious and thankfully good outcomes for our police department, I want to just have to say, acknowledge the things that have gone on the last couple weeks and say how blessed we are that tables weren't turned. I appreciate that. So again, this sounds really silly, but I just wanted to go on record that the last council meeting, I talked about the new benches. I wanted to thank everybody for of them. I was concerned about the color, the placements of the old and the new, and the notions of 175 benches with billboards on them in the city. Some spots, we all know for placements, some have some old, some new, some whatever, and I know that they've been addressed. I know maybe Chapman and Brookhurst is ground zero because we have 10 within a tiny little radius. And the bottom line is this: we all make mistakes, and we know how to admit it, suck it up, and we should get it right. To me, getting it right would be a new color. I'm not opposed to a bright new color. I'd like to see some samples. I'd like to see some of the benches that are currently cockamamie base to be changed. I'd like to make sure that our advertising, not just the content, but just the look of the overall city, that the landscape isn't too muddled up. And I think that Focus Media also bears some responsibility because they're the professionals. Everybody here has jobs, and their job is to ensure that what they put in the city looks good. And none of them should really go around and think that they could say, yeah, that looks great. Some of them do, some don't. So I just ask that everybody would work together to come up with a viable solution. I think it's a great idea. It could be really cute in the city. I have no problem with colors. As I went through Westminster and Fullerton and other places, I thought, yeah, black is really boring. So I can see where we were coming. Maybe we just got it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last of the cards we have, so that closes oral communications and takes us to written. We do have one written consideration.
Yes, we do. We have a consideration of proposed changes and requests to waive annual fees associated with the Garden Grove Farmers Market on Main Street, and Ms. Pelayo is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. At the City Council meeting held on Tuesday, February 13th, staff received direction to extend the annual permit for the weekly farmers market on Main Street for a period of 30 days and to have the director, Lee Ostendorf, return back to City Council with a proposed plan and/or changes to the current operations related to the weekly farmers market. Ms. Ostendorf is proposing or has provided a copy of her plan with this report. Additionally, Ms. Ostendorf is requesting that the City Council waive the annual business license fees and the event permit fee associated with the weekly farmers market. Ms. Ostendorf is here and available to answer any questions that City Council may have and elaborate on the plan. Staff is also available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Yes, pardon me, I'm not feeling so well tonight. I'm very hurtful, so my facial may not seem to be pleasant, and that's because I'm feeling pain, not because I'm upset. Can you, so the fee waiver this is just the licensing fee for the vendors, right? It's not the cost to the city, it's just the fee that we usually collect for each of the vendors that want to participate. Is that correct?
That is correct. For 21 vendors, there is a $50 fee for the event permit that is also being waived.
Right, but
Those are all just fees.
right. There is no cost for the city other than this is just a fee that we normally collect for each vendor.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other question.
Go for it, Stephanie.
First, I want to thank Ms. Ostendorf for all of your work on the farmers market since 2010. I do think that a farmers market is an important and needed component to our downtown and to Main Street. I frequent farmers markets and have frequented this one many times. I also wanted to mention that we received communications from the Downtown Business Association as well as our Garden Grove Chamber in support of your farmers market. I think going forward, it's not that I don't support this request, it's just that I would like to see a little bit of a deeper dive into what it is that you plan to do. I'd like some information and numbers on the vendors, how they're doing, what they're doing, where you've found them, and how you brought them to Garden Grove in this particular farmer's market. So again, I would support this request tonight. I would just like that there be a chance, maybe 90 days from now, or maybe even longer than that. Council, you know, we can all decide on that, but to come back and kind of give us a status report, how things are going, what things are looking like, what plan you've implemented, what have you already done to kind of bring maybe more people to the street at that time and so forth. And then we can continue on from there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Kim.
I just want to echo what Councilmember Klopfenstein stated. It's not that we want to take away the farmers market. We think it's a great idea. But when we asked last council for a plan, I was expecting to see a little bit something less vague and a little bit more voluminous. You know, how many more vendors are you planning to bring on? There's mention of events. What would those events look like? It's not that we're waiving a significant amount of money. We're not. It's money, but it's not significant. But we do want to see what are you doing with that money that we're waiving? You know, what events? How are we going to attract more people? I've been having meetings once a month in the downtown area on a Sunday, and I happen to go through with several of my friends at the downtown, and we go through the farmers market, and it's a small area, so I don't think you can do too much with it, but I think that there is some room for improvement. So I agree. I think we should revisit this in 90 days. Sounds fine to me, and see what the new plan would be.
Thank you. I would concur with that as well. I was expecting to see more than just sort of a one paragraph, sort of high level thing. I'm curious about attendance, and I just have an intuition that something like this event, like a street closure, could handle more people on the street if properly programmed to attract fresh new eyeballs and new people. So I'd love to see it sort of morph into something kind of a little more robust, to add to where our downtown is going, than what I've seen in the past. So I would love to give her the opportunity to do that, and would totally concur with what you guys said.
Mayor, would you like her to come up now and maybe elaborate a little bit more on that
Sure.
plan?
Sure.
The reason I really didn't go into a complete plan is because I wanted to meet with the Downtown Business Association to see what they would be behind and how they would partner. So we did have a great meeting. The subcommittee, I know Jennifer from Azteca Mexican Restaurant, and then Jim from Kay's Kitchen, right away just jumped on board to be part of the subcommittee. So it just wasn't a lot of time. I was out of town to really put something together. So, but I can certainly do that. Right now, we have about 21 vendors, including farmers, and we expect to have probably add at least 10 in about the next 3 months. One of the restrictions has been from the association about food. So they're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to submit some ideas of more food that we could bring. And then as far as the entertainment goes, we thought of, like just for an example, maybe we'd have a Father's Day with a car show in conjunction and have a band. So that would be, you know, some of them will be kind of simple, but they'll bring a lot of people because we want to get the high school involved, get the band to come down and play, get as many local people to come down and actually have their kids participate or them participate in some way. So, but I know we can put a good plan together that you would be happy with. Right now, we attract about 300 to 400 people this time of year. And then the Asian vegetables and the stone fruits and everything start coming in next month, April, May. And then we increase to like 700 to 800 people right now. Not bad. When we get all the stone
throughout
fruits
the
in.
day on a
Throughout
Sunday,
the,
it would-
yeah, from
okay.
9 to 2.
Okay,
Anything else?
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Do we have to alter the current motion to say that we'd like to accept and consider the fee request or waiver, but we also would like her to come back in 90 days? I'm not sure how that.
So you have the option. I'm not sure if the request is for her to just come back in 90 days, but still approve the annual permit. The request is for a one-year permit. It's calendar year. And so you can choose to approve the permit for the remainder of this year and have her still come back with an update in 90 days. Or if you're asking for the permit to only be extended 90 days and come back with an update then. So one of those two options you can motion on.
90 days?
I think we get it,
Because that's the point, I think, because we want to see more. I mean,
maybe extend the.
what
existing-
programs, how are they going to market it, how are they going to, I've never seen 700 people there. I've never seen 100 people there.
Okay, so at this time, I think we'd like to waive the fees up to the 90-day period and have Ms. Osendorf come back at that time with an update on how things are going and where we're at that time.
Okay.
And we can go from there.
All right.
I'll motion that.
Second.
Waiting for a second?
We had a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay. All right, we will now recess to conduct other agencies, so we have successor agency business to conduct. I'll open. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Yes. Member Beard.
Here.
Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Tu Ha Nguyen.
Here.
Member Klopfenstein.
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie.
Here.
And Chair Jones.
Here. Okay, we already did oral communication simultaneously with City Council. We have 2 consent items, just receive and file and approval of the warrants. Do I have a motion?
Remove the motion.
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Any matters from agency members? No. Seeing none, we will adjourn back to City Council. Which takes us to, we'll reconvene City Council to consent items. It's recommended that 4A through 4J be acted on simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull an item.
I'd like to pull 4A.
Okay.
I'd like to pull 4B, just for a comment.
Okay. Any others? Okay. I'll move the balance.
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, 4A for Councilmember
Yeah.
Klopfenstein.
I pulled 4A just to bring awareness to this program, shed some light on it. I think this is a real positive for the low-income senior population in Garden Grove. Obviously, the water rates itself has a little point of contention for everyone, so this is a real positive side to this, and so I thought maybe Bill Murray could just add to that and give us some further information.
Thank you, Councilmember Klopfenstein. The low-income senior discount does have a few eligibility criteria. The first criteria for that is a resident must live at the billing address, be a senior, 65 years and older. The bill must be in the resident's name, and they must be enrolled in the Southern California Edison's CARE program. The purpose of this is to offset some of the increase in costs in basically our meter charge that's coming up. We anticipate that with this particular increase, that actually for the first year, they're only going to experience a 26-cent increase, but that will go up as the following years. We are currently anticipate starting the program at about $5 per qualified applicant. Hopefully, we'll be able to get that up to about $10 and help out some more as time goes by. That's all I have.
Question? how much do you think we can help the seniors? Are we going to help all of the seniors and the low income? Or we just helping them until the fund run out?
We're going to help the ones that qualify. We believe that we're going to be able to help all of those that are, based on the demographics and what we've looked at, we should be able to help all of the seniors that qualify for this particular program.
How many do you think there are?
I think that we estimated that number somewhere around 100, maybe 200. It's not a whole bunch.
The reason that I'm very concerned about this is that during the water rate increase study, I have expressed grave concern for our seniors, especially those that only one of the spouse survive. They have a very limited income, and I'm worried, and I believe that some of them, probably more than 100, might be living by $1. And so I'm very worried about the water rate increase would be a serious toll on their financial. I appreciate your agency doing whatever you can, but I believe that there's certainly more than 100 seniors that might be in jeopardy. So I would hope that you look very careful into that and try to help as many as you can.
Yes, sir. Also, I was mistaken on my math. It's going to be closer to 500 that we're going to be able to help the first year.
Okay, well, that's much better than 100, because I'm really worried, because based on the number that call me every now and then and ask for help, I was afraid that there would be more than 100. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to move the senior low-income water rate.
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. 4B, pulled by Chris Beard.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. I'm fully in favor of this item, mostly because for the benefit of the education of the public, and it mentions here in the staff report that Community Economic Development Department has done a reorganization assessment, identified their strengths. This could be a strength added to code enforcement. So I want people to be aware of that. So, and also too, we're not adding a position to the budget. We are filling or reclassifying a vacant position. So I want to highlight that as well. This is a supervisory position. The emphasis will be on code enforcement, more efforts towards code enforcement, best practices related to code enforcement. So I want to make the public aware that we've gone internally as an organization to emphasize that. I'll bring up an item at the end of the meeting related to commercial code enforcement. I think hopefully we can address some issues in all of our areas related to commercial areas for more code enforcement. But 80-90% of code enforcement now is residential, so we can make an effort and emphasis on that. I think we've always worked hard as code enforcement to work with property owners, residential. Now it's time to work with commercial properties as well. So I just want to make that comment, make the public aware. And with that, unless people have questions, I want to put this forward, move to adopt this motion.
And Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Beard, just to reiterate, we hear a lot about code enforcement all the time. So Lisa Kim, our Director of Community Economic Development, through some of her reorganization efforts, this is a way to strengthen some of our code enforcement efforts to really be a little more responsive and really kind of attack some of these issues. So that's what we're trying to do, and you're correct. It's budget neutral. There's no increase to the budget, and we're not adding new positions.
Thank you. I'll second. Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Alrighty, that takes us on to public hearings. We have one tonight, 5A.
Item 5A is the introduction and first reading of an ordinance enacting adjustments in water rates and charges and authorizing future automatic adjustments in water rates to account for adopted increases or decreases in wholesale charges the city pays to other agencies for water. And this ordinance is entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending sections 141210 and 141230 of Chapter 1412 of Title 14 Water of the Municipal Code relating to water rates and charges." And Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. Tonight, the City Council is being asked to hold a public hearing to introduce for first reading and adoption an ordinance authorizing adjustments in the water rates and related charges, as well as authorizing automatic adjustments for pass-through water rate increases or decreases. In October of 2016, the city hired FG Solutions to prepare a 5-year water financial plan and water rate study with the goal of supporting our fiscal needs for the water enterprise. Tonight, I have with me Debbie Fortin and Art Griffith from FG Solutions, and that is who prepared the study. I also have with me tonight our acting water manager, or actually, he is our permanent water manager. I'm now out. Sam Kim. Currently, the fiscal condition of the water enterprise is poor, and this city has postponed needed capital improvement projects for the past 2 years. The water enterprise is operating at a deficit and will exhaust its reserve funds within the next couple years. Should that occur, the city's general fund will need to pay for the water enterprise obligations. The water rate study has identified 2 main causes for the poor fiscal condition of the water enterprise. First, water sales have fallen about 33% since the drought, and the second is the need for capital improvements to be made to ensure a proper operation of the water system. Furthermore, the water study has identified the required revenue and rate scheme which will return the water enterprise fund to solvency, increase the fund's resiliency to another drought event, and finally provide for needed capital improvements. I would like to draw your attention to the screen for presentation, because I'd like to go through that with you and take a look at our different water rates for various types of water users. And I don't like this particular side. We'll start with a single-family residence. It's a low water user. They're not quite low enough to qualify for the discount, but still very low. And you can see their current rate, what they would get for 7 billing units, which is 100 cubic feet, and that is about 748 gallons per 1 unit. 100 cubic feet equals 748 gallons. So the current bill is about $35.70, and over the next 5 years, it's going to increase fairly significantly to $60.87.
Oh, wait.
The next billing is kind of a moderate raise, and it's 30 billing units, and the current rate on that is $106.31, and over the next 5 years, we expect that to go up to $126.65. And for a higher water user, 70 billing units or 100 cubic feet, that water rate is currently $231.83, and it will go all the way up to $298.03 within the next 5 years. We put up some numbers for multifamily users just for council to get an idea of what they're looking at. But for multifamily, that's a pretty low use, only has a 3-inch meter, uses 55 billing units. It's actually lower than the high single-family water user. The current bill is about $352. And one of the things I hope I haven't been saying per month, this is actually bi-monthly for all of these rates. So, and it will go up to $469.45 for a bi-monthly bill by year 2022. We have a lot more water usage here for still continuing with multifamily, but they're using 194 cubic feet of water a month. And currently that bill for a multifamily is $790.13 for 2 months. And that will go all the way up to $867 for 2 months. Continuing with multifamily, 50 units, and this one is using hardly any, 1,200 cubic feet per month. Oh, I think I got this wrong. What is that supposed to be? It's per apartment unit. Oh, the per apartment unit. So they got 50 units using on average 1,200 cubic feet per month. That makes a lot more sense. So the total bill for the entire complex will be $4,100, every 2 months, and that will go up to, almost $4,800 every 2 months. Let's see. Moving on to commercial, we have pretty heavy user, 500. It'll be actually 50,000 cubic feet of water that they're using a month, or actually bi-monthly, I should say. And currently, that is almost $1,700 for every 2 months, and that bill will go up to $1,960 every 2 months. We have an institutional, which can consist of something like a church or a school, and this particular institution is using 180 HCF, which is 100 cubic feet, and that's every 2 months. And currently, that bill is about $631, and it will go to $600 and almost $50 for every 2 months. And continuing with a high water user on the institutional, it's a 790 HCF, and that bill, $3,100, just a little bit over, almost, and it's going up to, over a 5-year period, to almost $3,200 for every 2 months. And finally, I'd like to show kind of a comparison of where we sit when you look at other cities and what they're doing with their rates. A lot of the other cities have already gone forward with the drought impact. They've already gone and raised their water rates. So we're still sitting mid-pack at this particular point in time with our water rates. And the thick black line is what we're proposing. Where it's flat down at the bottom, that is the low water use discount. And you see that impact there. And where do we go with that? And we talk about the senior stuff. So continuing back on with my report, these water rates should go into effect after the ordinance is approved and the 30-day notice is sent to the ratepayers. And we expect this to occur by summer. Also included in the ordinance is a provision to automatically increase or reduce rates to account for pass-through charges. Those adjustments will occur in January over the next 5 years, should this ordinance be approved. For your information, pass-through charges are the costs the city pays to the Orange County Water District for pumped water and to the Metropolitan Water District of Orange County for imported water. For reference, the city pumps about 70% of its water and imports the remainder. This concludes, oh wait, I'm sorry, I have some more here. To continue the water adjustment, the council must hold a public hearing on the matter, consider the written protests, and there must be over 50% of the ratepayers to just outright deny a rate adjustment, and you must vote on the ordinance. And then in the future, we will hold a second reading of the ordinance. And finally, staff will have to implement the rate adjustment. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you. City Clerk, at what time do we do that procedure? That's not till after a public hearing is held?
Yeah,
correct?
we can do that right after you close the public hearing.
Okay. Okay. Any questions of staff, or should we open the public hearing? Okay. We're going to open the public hearing. We do have two cards. Joseph Samolo? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I had a couple of concerns as a homeowner, a resident here in Garden Grove. I have a budget, as we all do, in our homes, and I have to quite often foresee things in the future that might cost me money, like a new roof or new pavement or things of that nature, and I plan for it. It's kind of disappointing that the city, with all these talented people, is unable to do that. And it seems that it's they're passing the buck to the ratepayer. I don't think that's good business or good. It's fair. The city's not a for-profit organization like a business that's looking to make money. And of course, when the material that they buy to build that car or build that whatever costs more, what do? They pass that cost on to the consumer. I would hope that the city of Garden Grove would be able to look forward and see that that cost is going to occur and plan for it accordingly, so that that expense doesn't fall into the budget of the people that live here. I know that when I have a shortfall, I have to borrow money, or if I haven't planned for it. I don't know if the city has a method of doing that, like a bond or something like the state or the federal, where people can loan the money for the repair or the infrastructure or the cost, the additional costs, and then pay the loan back. It's not good to go into debt, but it's the way most of us have to operate. It's just something that I wanted to put forth and share with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tony Flores.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Tony Flores. You know, it's interesting, a while ago, you were asking the lady there about the farmer's market and what's in her plan, et cetera, and where the money's going. Citizens have the same question of you folks. Isn't it interesting? A while back, I sent you an email regarding my objections to this particular issue, our increase in water services. You'll recall, I started asking questions around the end of 2016, actually during 2016. We were talking about the water budget. We were talking about some dollars that were in there after reviewing the CAFRs, the comprehensive annual finance reports. Let's jump back to 2017, January, the Public Works Water Rate Study. I specifically asked, and it was never answered in a public records request, what the admin costs of $2.4 million. Okay, this is 2017. I specifically asked if that was used for any governmental services. I was told no, and I understand that's not exactly correct, that we're using it for other than the actual cost of the dollars. In this particular study now that was done by FG Solutions, and I got to put the cheaters on here, sorry, regarding, let's see here, on page, your page, 3-3, table 3-4. Line number 5, customer. When you drop down, it says administrative expenses are allocated based on a weighted average of all expenses. That's almost $2.7 million there. My understanding is it's the same thing that was in the 2017 study. These are administrative costs that are above and beyond. Now, I also understand when looking at the comprehensive annual finance reports and the budget, if we didn't have this $2.4 million for 2017, we would not have had to raise the rates then. My same understanding is that with this $2.6 million, almost 2.7, if this wasn't in there, we wouldn't have be raising the rates now. Are you folks aware of this? You've read this, right? Yeah. You look at me like I'm talking about something else here. So I'm wondering if you looked at this, because My public records request has gone unanswered then, and it's still unanswered now. As far as our loan in Table 2-7, we've got dollars there. A while ago, I've been talking about the Fleet Management Fund. We've got over $31 million in there. It looks like we're applying the same tactics and principles on collecting dollars for that Fleet Management Fund, and we're doing that here with our water dollars. In that email I sent to you folks a while ago, a reporter from Sacramento Bee was talking about, this isn't unique to Garden Grove. All the cities are throughout the state are doing this because we can't find a way to fund our pensions. So are we raising it to raise it, even though if I understand Mr. Murray right, we've decreased our water use, okay, because of the drought. Okay, we're decreasing it, but the rates are going up. You see how that kind of sounds bizarre? And getting back to our, excuse me, let me get back to that other point I was going to make here. Regarding that particular reporter from Sacramento Bee, all the cities are doing this. It's a way to bring in a revenue stream, apparently to help fund pensions, the unfunded pensions that we got ourselves into, and we have to address it. I think folks need to be honest with the citizens of Garden Grove, need to be direct, whatever the truth is, how brutal it might be. But if you guys can't cut the mustard handle on our dollars, we need other folks up here to do it. Thank you.
But I would like to address the chat.
Please come forward, but just fill out a card on your way up. Please, go ahead.
Can I address the chamber now?
What's that?
Can I address the chamber now? Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm a
Just
resident
make sure and
of-
leave her card with you.
Yeah, I'm a resident of the city of Garden Grove from way back when. Obviously, I'm paying, I'm a member of the Republican Party, if that counts. I'm a U.S. citizen, if that counts. But I disagree totally with the increasing in water. If you look on your bill, it's nothing by water imported charges and some other charges with improvement of the system, so the customer has to pay all this. If you're not able to handle the load, pass it over to others, pass it over to the county, or pass it over to whatever. What you water, I have the customer doesn't have any other option because it's not allowed to set up a well on his property, right? Okay, the only way to get water is by whatever, three-quarter line which comes in through the meter. But all these improvements you as a customer to pay for. No, this is totally unacceptable. No, the customer doesn't need to pay for improvement on your system. Okay, if you're not able to handle, pass over to somebody else. Okay, so somebody else, which means the county, the state, or whatever. But no, don't ask the customer to pay because the customer is limited. I'm retired for 4 years. My pension doesn't go up every year. Okay, you know that. Electricity goes up by tiers. Water goes up by tiers. So why should we pay for improvement? Why should we do all this as a customer? No, it's your obligation. You want to improve the water, you have to provide water to the property. The customer has no other choice other than to accept you. No, this is totally wrong. Okay, as you know, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, trying to improve, to cut down on a lot of charges, unacceptable charges. So I'm pretty sure you know about that. So this is one thing. That's what I came for today, to disagree with this. I marked it on my calendar when I received a letter from you. You're going to increase the charges? No, not even a penny. I disagree totally with this. Because you cannot do so much. You can string that customer. What do you want to do? Send him to the street, unable to pay? What are you going to do? Obviously, if that doesn't pay, you're going to cut off his water, right? So what's going to happen? This is unacceptable. Like I said, if you're not able to handle the load, okay, pass over to somebody else which is able to, which is simple as that. That's why this country is going to go forward, believe it or not, but with the people, proper people, not the people which are unable to handle the load. Simple as that. We elect you to be there to take in consideration our concerns. So do the improvement properly, do everything properly, do investment properly, everything has got to be properly. Otherwise, we're going to go down to drain. So this is my point. Thank you.
Okay, we will now close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, what is it we need to do? You need to note whether any written
Yes,
protests were received?
Yes, I do. Mr. Mayor and council members, at this time, I would like to enter into the record the following information. As of 5:30 PM today, March 13th, the city clerk's office received a total of 57 written protests of the water rate adjustments. Since 5:30 PM, there have been no additional written protests, so the total received was 57. There are 34,692 parcels served by the city and subject to the rate adjustment. As a result, there is no majority protest of the water rate adjustment.
Okay, thank you. So, council members.
I have quite a few questions, so bear with me because I'm not feeling that well. First question is the procedural. If we don't have the majority protest, can the city council reject this water increase, or we have to agree to the water increase?
City council can always vote not to implement a rate increase.
Second question. In your summary, you mentioned about approving this, also approve the automatic adjustment. What do you mean by that? Can you clarify for us?
Yes, Mr. Bowie. We have to pay for our pumped water. We have to pay money to the Orange County Water District, and that is for a basin replenishment charge, because they're in charge of the underground aquifer. And then we also purchase imported water from the Metropolitan Water District. From time to time, they raise their rates. And in order to remain solvent, we have to pass that charge along. So that's what this refers to, is they let us know how much they're going to be raising their rates. It's usually, a few percentage every year. I know the OCTA last year had a fairly large increase, or OCWD, I'm sorry. That one got passed along. So in order for us, if we were to not do that, then we would incur the resulting loss.
Now, that automatic adjustment only to increase the additional surcharge that other agency press upon us. It's not giving you, Garden Grove Water Agency, the approval to increase the city portion of it without the city council approval. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And just for your information, we have not raised the city portion of the water rate since 2007.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I really appreciate that. I also realized that last year, the state water agency raised the fee, but not the Garden Grove. And a lot of people, like my wife, asked me, how come your city increased the water rate? I said, not the city. It's not the city water department that raised the money on your bi-monthly statement. It's the other agency. Third question. The amount of increase for this coming years, how much would that total? Can you re-articulate that?
For an average residential...
The total revenue that the city would expect from that additional increase.
Over the next 5 years?
Just for next year.
Next year, that's 5%.
So how many $1 million do we expect in addition to what we collect last year?
Excuse me, sir?
What would be the total amount of dollar that we would collect for next year, next fiscal years?
It's almost $5 million, sir.
So $5 million that we collect for the entire year or just the increase?
The increase.
The increase. And what do we do with that $5 million for that years?
That $5 million will go to paying all of our owning and, operations and maintenance. Plus, we're also going to be getting back into funding our capital improvements. And generally, our capital improvements average somewhere around almost $5 million a year.
And you mentioned during the water rate study with us, that we are having an infrastructure repair that looming in the horizon, right? Can you explain to me again?
That is correct.
How much would that be?
We are looking at, in the future, about $36 million in infrastructure charges that we need to address.
And that is just to fix the station that will hold that water for us. Is that correct?
There's a lot of different projects, but in general, we're spending about half of the money on our water lines, our pipes that are in the ground, and the other half of the money is going towards your large reservoir tanks. If we could go to the screen. Maybe, there we go. And so this is an example of one of our reservoirs. And all of our reservoirs currently are almost 40 years old. We have one that's 17. And so all of those need to be looked at and maintained, periodically. And we're due for that. So that's basically the other half of the money.
Hopefully this is the last question. If I have more questions, I will come back. Mayor?
Sure.
On page 2.5, table 2.7, we are listing 5 items there, and I would like to bring your attention to the first 2 lines. Line number 1, outstanding principal beginning years, fiscal year 16-17, so the first column. 13.374 blah 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 $million, and the interest rate for that was 6.5%, and then for the coming fiscal year we propose to reduce that down to 4.1%. From what I understand, this is the obligation by the Garden Grove Water Agency to pay back for the repair of the street that cost some $14 million in the past, and that I believe go back to about 18 years. Was that correct?
Correct.
And for the last 18 years, the previous city council have approved a interest-only payment at 6.5%. And we have paid that, the water agency have paid that. My question is why the first 2 years, the 6.5% interest rate seemed to be reasonable because that was the rate then. But since the years number 3 to most recently, the rate have been consistently low at about 2.5% or 3% in some case. It seemed to me that we have paid close to $17 million in interest only for the last 18 years. That would be more than the money that the water agency owed to Public Works. So, and I understand the logic of, hey, you borrow the money, you have to pay at prevailing interest rate. But it seemed to me that the resident, especially in this case, the people who use the water, have paid a very good share of that loan. And this is just in interagency loans. Why is it that we have to continue to pay at at the current interest rate? Why can't the city give the resident a break and reduce the interest rate further than 4.1%.
I'm going to turn that question over to Kingsley Okariki, our Finance Director.
Well, let me answer it this way. Previously, as you pointed out, the interest was 6.5%. But if you recall, way back when this was set at 6.5%, the interest rate was above 10% at the time. So it stayed at 6.5%. And the other point that in the past maybe 2-3 years that interest rates came down to 2.5%. That's the general interest rates, but the borrowing rate for city, even the bonds that we issued over those past 5 years or 3 years or 4 years, the rate have been in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 4.6%. The 4.1% was a rate that following the council study session, I believe a couple of months ago, where we had the discussion whether to leave it at 6.5% or bring it down in line with what at the time we believe were the prevailing borrowing rate in terms of bonds that local government, that's the vehicle to borrow for local governments. And the 4.1%, today is very reasonable. It's very competitive. If we were to go out today to issue bonds, it probably will fall in the neighborhood of maybe 4.5%. So to reduce it, the other question, to reduce it further would just be arbitrary without any tied to any index or so.
So the interest rate that we propose is more along the line of commercial loan interest rate rather than the prime rate, where the bank loan to other bank.
Yeah, the city can. Yeah, it's the borrowing rate that the city has. If we were to, water agency were to go out and issue bonds, that's how the city borrows. We cannot walk into a bank and do short-term loans. When you have prime, those are usually short-term loans. But when you do a 30-year loan, where for cities, it's usually in the form of a bond or a certificate of participation, and that's the kind of rates.
I got it now. So, question for our attorney: since we are loaning to ourselves, right? Public Works is loaning to water agency. This is inter-agency loans. Can we, as city council, let's say if we want to approve, and I'm not sure if my colleague will approve it or not. But let's just say theoretically that we want to approve a much lesser rate, like 2% or 0%. Can we do that, or we don't have the authority to do that?
Well, you could do it, but then when the city goes through the annual audit, the auditors are probably going to ask, what's the basis for that number? This is why our finance director, consulting with financial managers and the agencies that help us issue bonds in order to identify the appropriate rate in order to have a clean bill of health when we do our next audit.
Okay, thank you. No more question.
Councilmember Tuhowen.
Bill, how many reservoirs are we having in the city total?
What's that, 7, Sam? 8? 8. Sam says 8.
Okay. So we have 8 reservoirs, and it's all come up to the time for maintenance. And with the money that we're going to come in, half of $30 million, right? Without that money and something unforeseen happen, what's the damage and how much are we expecting to fix?
Well, some of you may recall when Westminster had a water tank failure, and it took out about 26 houses. They had never actually, from my understanding of the reports, went in and conducted reviews or maintenance of their water tanks. They had a kind of an interesting design where it was half in the ground and half above, and when they failed, it basically flooded out a neighborhood. So they had to go back and go towards the federal government, basically ask them for relief funds on that whole issue. really quickly, see if I can find the exact numbers on that. Okay, so this is, okay, loss estimate in water tank starts at 20 million. So this is when Westminster, and, you know, I'm just reading this off the paper just like you folks. It occurred back in 1998, but their water storage tank ruptured and took out a neighborhood, and their estimated costs were 20 to 25 million. However, they had to reimburse all those citizens, so these costs continued to go up as you know, basically they got attorneys and came back and sued the city for that rupture. So it is available. It's a decent amount of money. It is much cheaper to maintain something and keep it in good repair than it is to take this type of a risk. And possibly, if you have to pay out the money, it's significant.
Thank you. I mean, that's very important information that we need to take into consideration is we rather preventive maintenance rather than something really happen and we're not up ready to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, Councilmember Kimway.
How do other city water divisions and water districts throughout the state of California fund their capital improvements?
It's very similar. It's very similar to what we do. It's you know, none of us are really forward thinkers, so to speak, in how we're coming up with funding and how we're coming up with paying for it and various rate schemes. I mean, some cities might have 2 tiers, others might have two or just 1 tier. Some are implementing different rate tiers for your particular square footage of landscaping and things like that. But in general, all of those costs for the capital improvements are dispersed throughout the rate structure.
So essentially, it's by selling water.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
So, that's the answer I wanted. Sorry, I didn't mean for you to get into a complicated response.
I'm an engineer.
So the city of Garden Grove isn't in the business of making money, but the water division is in the business of selling water.
Correct.
True. Okay. So for instance, like our paramedic, the tracks that we did not so long ago to increase the tax on the paramedics so that we could make back the money we were losing, this is essentially the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay. And since November 2016, we've had 4 council study sessions, which means study sessions which are open to the public to attend and get better understanding of this water rate increase.
That's correct.
Alongside several workshops, a few of which were canceled because no one showed up.
Yeah, we had a couple
tried.
people there, but they're very important.
No, I meant to say we tried. We tried to host several different community meetings in an attempt to get this information out, because I remember annoyingly so telling Scott that we have to be more proactive and educate our community in how it is that we function as a government and how it is that we pay for the services that we provide to our residents. And in that effort, I know that there was a couple where 1 or 2 people came or no one came and they had to be canceled because there was no one there to give a presentation to, is my point.
Correct.
Okay. And lastly, cost of living, cost of things you buy, everything is increasing, right? I obviously don't want to have to pay more. I live in a 400-plus unit apartment complex that charges me way too much for the 1-bedroom apartment in the location that I live. But unfortunately, the reality is that cost of living, cost of purchasing, cost of planting, growing, and selling the food, all of these things are increasing in order to make sure that the city doesn't go under for things that we should be getting money back for. We have to make this increase to make ends meet, and then also to make our capital improvements.
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Klopfenstein.
Mr. Murray, this is probably stating the obvious, but if someone were to diminish or lessen their water usage, could that also lessen their impact on their bill?
Of course.
Okay. Also, if someone were to call you, a resident wanted to have their bill broken down to look at what that rate would look like, someone from your water department could do the math for them and give them those numbers. Is that possible between now and, say, our next reading or whatever we decide to do?
Yes, we'll have a part-timer in there. You all may remember that I would always used to bring Katie Victoria.
Yes.
Well, Katie is, it's time for the baby to come. So she was supposed to be here tonight in order to offer that service to our residents. However, the baby had other plans.
That's usually how that works, yeah. Okay, very good.
They're still free to call, and we will do the best to provide that information. And so if you call, we can actually, if you give us your address, we can look and see exactly what you're using now and what you can expect to pay for the coming years.
It's a lot of information.
Excuse me?
The bill you send out say everything.
It does.
There
So
you
all I
go.
need is your address, and I could let you know.
You don't need to because in the bill.
Point of order, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, point of order.
Yeah, sorry, the public hearing is actually closed, so we're not actually supposed to have a dialogue with the,
excuse me.
I know that it's closed, but when you find more information from this going back and forth bantering, are you going to open that up to these questions that have already been posed, that have been after the public hearing?
we're now in the process of deliberating based on everything we've heard from the public and then the questions we're engaging with staff on, so I presume it will be conscientious.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Councilmember Rowan,
yeah,
please.
so that's the whole point of this, is a public hearing, discussion, first reading, second reading, things can be tweaked. So I think we're going through one at a time, so we can explain where we're coming from. We've all studied this issue for a long time. I'm a big proponent of supporting infrastructure. I've worked in it my entire life. Electricity and water, they go together. Well, now you don't want to put them together, but they go together. You can't have water without electricity, and vice versa a lot of times. But anyway, and when I say we, I'm talking about the residents, the elected officials, the staff. We're all in this together in the city of Garden Grove. We operate our own water department. It's a public entity. We're not in it for the money. We want to provide the water at a cost that's not making a profit, but we have to support our infrastructure. And with that said, it's deficient. We've been
Subsidizing?
What was the word?
Subsidizing.
We've been subsidizing our water program for a while now, and we've got to look at this seriously. So we have 17 facilities in the city. I believe we have, like we said, 8 reservoirs. There's 13 wells. There's multiple 5 pump stations. This requires a lot of infrastructure. And it's time, 60 years. A lot of the city was incorporated in 1956. It's time to do something. Now, I'm not saying that I'm just going to put a rubber stamp on this. What we're doing is we're talking and having discussion. My questions, or just my input is, is it time to re-examine our bi-monthly water billing statement? Maybe we need to go to monthly. A lot of people get paid weekly and monthly or bi-monthly, and maybe we need to go to a monthly now, and that creates additional administrative costs. So that's why we have a bi-monthly billing plan, is because it saves the ratepayer money, because we only bill you once every 2 months instead of every month. So that's a factor you got to take in. But would it be easier on the consumer as we're raising rates? Maybe we have to go to a monthly. Maybe we'll have enough people to sign on for an online instead of getting a paper bill. That saves us a little bit of money. So that's something to talk about. What else? The timeline. To me, it's all about the cost and the timeline. Do we just hit everybody with a bill right now and give you a 25% rate increase over the next 5 years? It's easy to manipulate the numbers any way you want, but when it comes down to it, this is a substantial increase to the ratepayers, and anybody that lives here in Garden Grove is a ratepayer. So my input would be: can we look at the timeline? Can we make it 10 years instead of 5 years and postpone the work a little bit down the road? Can we manipulate the water statement to come monthly instead of bi-monthly, so people have an easier time paying for it? And the increases are substantial, and I'm concerned, and I don't think I can rubber stamp this tonight unless we have further discussion and we talk about this. It's a very substantial increase to everybody. So that's just my input for now. I'm looking forward to further discussion on these as we keep talking.
Just to comment on there, just to bring some pertinent facts back up. We haven't done a study since 2007, so this is been taking some time. We've come to this point. We've recorded 57 protests. That seems like a small number, but that has rippling effects. People can't necessarily be happy with rate increases. We're not happy with proposing rate increases. We're dealing with fixed costs, we're dealing with capital improvements, we're dealing with infrastructure. I know I'm repeating a lot of what my colleagues already said, but the facts are the facts. The ratepayers pay that, it's an enterprise fund. We could try and supplement that, but if the way things stand now, I've heard it loud and clear, we're at a solvency point. We're going to, this fund will collapse basically, but also to really highlight some capital improvements. We talked about wells, we talked about reservoirs, boosters, studies. We even talked about things looking into cyber security related to these systems. So this is all important, very important stuff. It's like these costs come our way, and then we, as a commodity, we have to, those costs rise, but the capital improvements, we operate the system. We own the system, we have to operate in a responsible manner. And maintenance is very important, preventative maintenance. So these costs are fixed. How do we address them? We can't supplement them, continue to do so. We're at a structural deficit as a city. I do want to clarify one thing too. Speaker mentioned that admin costs related to funding other portions of the city. This has nothing to do with other issues related to funding for other programs, for anything of that nature. This is all strictly the water accounts and relates to ratepayers and has nothing to do with pensions or anything like that. Let's clarify that clearly. This is what we're talking about. So we have to do what we have to do, and it may seem gradual. We've done this plan phases it in over a 5-year period. I hear what Councilman O'Neill is talking about, but we need to take these steps now, short term, then we can reassess it maybe after a couple of years of what our status is with this fund and how solvent that is. These have been deferred projects for some time, and so we have to take that into consideration, and that's a big driving force for the increased costs. Again, it's not pleasant, and we've tried to address how it may impact some of the seniors with a slight discount, and hopefully that'll be a wash. But we have to do what we have to do to be responsible to keep the system going. Water is an essential service. Public safety is essential, but we tend to forget water is essential. We can do without other things. Water is that. We have to make sure it's clean, it's portable, but we also have to make sure our fire services are in line with protecting the public as well. So there's a lot of things added to all this. It's not just increasing the amount of your water to recover those costs. It's to have the assurance of a safe delivery of those water systems to the residents as well, and the fire services. So I just think we have to do what we have to do, and as unpleasant as it is, we have the protest, but I think there's a big sentiment out there, but people will realize this is what we have to do responsibly as a city.
Thank you. Councilmember Bowie.
I think what the other resident raising the question about is about the fact that some of this money is being used to fund other purpose. What that part is about the loan obligation repayment. As we pay interest only, that payment can be used for anything because that's the income. The only part that cannot be used for other purpose, but only for the public work, is the principal. And because the resident have been paying interest only for that particular portion, some $1 million every year, that funding have been used for general fund because it is an income, not a payment to public work obligation. With that, before I vote, I have some comments, and I wonder whether I should yield for other colleagues to ask questions first before I get to the point where I express my comment before the vote. It's up to you, Mayor.
Anybody else, or is everybody kind of aired out? I think we're probably about that point. Okay. If you want to go ahead.
I am not in support of this item for the only following reason. I do understand that the city is a service provider and we have cost. And we are at the point where we have infrastructure that we need to maintain, and we may have a major repairment looming maybe in 10 or 15 years. And that item is very expensive, and we need to have sufficient saving at this point cumulatively so that when the time comes to repair, do a major repair for the reservoir, we have the funding available to us instead of having to issue the bond. However, I don't agree with how we go about to fund that at the expense of the residents. We put the burden of the finance 100% on the resident, and I believe that is not the right way to do it. Garden Grove is not like neighboring city where we are on the verge of bankruptcy. We're doing okay. Now, I know we have some deficit last year that we struggled and managed to break even. And we have other financial issue looming in the future. But we are a growing city. We have major project on Harbor Boulevard. And we are about to invest a lot of money into redevelopment that area, tens of millions. So I believe that why we need to increase the water rate, putting it solely on the burden of the resident is not the right way to do it. And that's why I am not in support of this item.
So what would be the alternative then? Have the general fund subsidize the losses from the water district?
I'm not saying that subsidize it, but the city needs to operate as a whole. And perhaps, well, if you look at it from the other angle, the water user have been subsidized other things through an interest-only payment for the last 18 years. So, and I don't have a perfect formula or a solution yet, but I feel that putting 100% sole burden on the resident is not the right way to do it, and I just don't want to do it that way. I hope we could be able to come up with a better solution, a more balanced approach. If we are saying that for the last many years, we have been subsidizing the residents on the water cost, I would like to know how much do we subsidize? Do we subsidize a lot or we subsidize a little? And if we subsidize a lot, how is there can we somehow subsidize a little more so that they can sustain their family finance? The resident does not face this water increase alone. They're facing many other fee increase. They also facing the water rate increase by the water district. This is just the city portion alone, and I am really worried that this will break a lot of families, and therefore I feel that, you know, if we put the investment, and I am a business person, so I know sometimes we have to invest money in order to make money for the city, and in order to have money to serve the residents. But if we are preparing to invest tens of millions of dollars in hotel development along harbor, perhaps we should put aside some number to help soften this water needs. And you know, I don't have the solution. So if you ask me to vote tonight, I would have to not rubber stamp and vote yes for it.
Councilman Roney.
I'm trying to look at it from the residents' perspective. A lot of them, even though we had 57, people opposing it, but those are the only ones that knew about it. But a lot of people are working busy, and they're expecting us to do our job up here. The problem I have with this is I'm in full support of some sort of increase because I know that we need it to help our infrastructure here, but the base increase is too substantial in 5 years. We need to spread it out over 10 years. I would probably vote for that, but I can't vote. I just, in my gut, I just can't vote for this tonight the way it's written. That's why we're having this discussion. Maybe we can go forward and tweak it, But if you look at and I'm not even talking about water costs. We don't make a profit from the actual cost of the water, what the water district charges us, and then what we charge you. I'm not even going to include the water costs, because those are going to go up over the next number of years, regardless of what anybody does, okay? But our base charges, we're increasing base charges to support our infrastructure. But to me, it's a $26 bi-monthly fee, which isn't a lot. I mean, we pay more for our cable TV and our internet and all that, but it's just a hit to that individual that I think can't sustain. Will be very upset if we do that in a 5-year period. I think we need to make it a little bit longer.
Yeah, I want to point out to the city council that under state law, we can only study 5 years and adopt increases over a 5-year period. Our last 5 year for passing through the cost of the other agencies has already expired. And if the council does not take action today, if we get higher bills from the other agency, we will not be able to pass those through. We would have to go through the process all over again. Also, state law does not permit the city to run a profit. This is why we have a study. So the study shows that we have X amount of expenses, and these rates will actually generate sufficient revenue to fill those expenses. So this is why we're having this study today, because the 5 years have already expired since the last time we had these hearings. And we're at a point that if we cannot pass through the additional costs from the other agencies, that's what our public works director was indicating. The fund will go into deficit.
Right. But the question I would have is, we did a pass-through increase in 2016 in December, I believe. We do those annually or every 2 years. Can't we do that instead of 1 5-year and then being locked out, so to speak? And we could reduce the space, if it's 5 years period, that's fine, but maybe we need to reduce the base rate to compensate for the 5 year instead of 10 year.
Right, I agree with Council Member O'Neill.
We got to start somewhere.
I understand that the law only allows us to propose a 5 years rate. We cannot do 6 or even 10 years. But if we know that we need, let's say this is about $20 million increase in 5 years. If we knew that, then why not pass a 10 years, 10 million additional increase for this 5 year, and then the remaining 10 will be added into the next 5 years. But we don't do it, and we wait until that 5 years come, and then we do that. That's not entirely impossible to do, right?
It is not impossible to do, Councilmember Bowie. The issue that we're looking at right now is that we have not done any capital improvements for 2 years. So we're already into this. It's going to take a certain amount of time in order for us to start getting money together. And the purpose of passing this entire measure is so that we will have sufficient financial data to show a bonding company so that we can go ahead and bond for those improvements, do that work in the future. If we pass a rate that isn't whole, so to speak, and we will not be able to show those people looking to loan us money that we were in a financially solvent position.
I understand now. I understand now, but my problem is, and this is what I have stressed over and over again. I really, I don't like to use this language here in the dais, but I just have to do it. I really hate it when the city wait for years, do not increase the rate, and then boom, in 5 years or 10 years, we suddenly increase it in very substantially. That's not the right way to do it. We need to, if we have the guts, we need to increase the rate every year, gradually, so that the resident, the consumer, have time to adjust to it. But let's not go into that. What I would like to do is, this huge increase, I am afraid will be unbearable to many, many residents. And I do not have the gut to look at them and have them suffer. So I would not vote I don't know if we need to debate more, but I'm willing, I'm ready to vote no on this. I don't know if you guys need to discuss this or not.
I was just going to add, whatever, at some point in time, this increase is going to come. If we wait 5 years and the city is now in red because of this, then we have to increase it substantially more than we would right now in order to backwards work the money we're losing at this point. Again, we've known about this since November 2016, or as far I've known about this since November 2016. We've had a year, we've had 4 council study sessions in which a lot of the discussion happening today has not occurred before. This was not a surprise. We knew this was coming. If we had these sort of reservations and strong opinions, we should have voiced them earlier so that staff could have had ample time to figure out what else they can do. But it sounds like, per our consultant and our team, that this was the best that they could come up with. And at the 4th and final study session that we had as a council, we did not give them any direction as far as that we were not on board with this. So what I hate is when we tell city staff to go along and do something, and then at the last minute, we're like, you know what? We don't like it. Never mind. That is not okay either.
Councilman Nguyen, I have stated at every single study that I'm in that I do not like this, and I'm also stated it on a individual meeting with our agency that I do not like it. And in fact, yesterday, I also indicated that I do not like this. So don't tell me that I've been sending the wrong signal.
It was not a directed, pointed statement to yourself, so don't have to combat that.
I'd just like to say that, I totally appreciate what staff has done, the study has done. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I'm just saying that for the residents who we represent of this city, we have to look at it from their perspective. And like Councilmember Bowie said, we should have done something a little sooner. Now we're hitting everybody with the bill, and it's like, it's too much, too soon. We need to go more gradual into it.
Please, Councilmember Tuhelman.
I just want to ask something. Treat this, the city is a family, is a home that we all live in. Our home, we have pipes underneath the house. We have toilet. It's going to break, right? So my house, for example, if I see the toilet almost old and I see the leak, I'm start replace it. I don't wait until it bursts. We're in a situation where all the reservoir and the pipe are up to age. Unforeseen happen, something happened tomorrow, something burst. We don't have money to fix it. All the houses around that neighborhood could be damaged. I mean, that's a lesson we learned in the past in the city of Westminster. 26 houses destroyed. 26 families had to relocate. The damage that we bearing for that? So, I mean, right now it's according to we look at $21.15 increase, divide by 30 days. That's less than $1 we can put on the side. But if you expect something that down the line, waiting for it to happen, why not preparing to repair, to fix it? So that's my point is, treat as this is our home. Toilet gonna break, pipe gonna break. So that's where I stand.
Just one last thing. Again, I want to reiterate, I don't like to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to feel the hit. My family will feel the hit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather do it now where we have this plan in place. We have the increases set out for you for 5 years. You're aware of it. You can plan for it versus not doing anything now, coming back to you in 5 years and having to charge you double or triple this at an unexpected time when things are even harder because of the fact that we didn't do anything today. We didn't do anything when we should have, but we're doing it now, and we will try to be more consistent moving forward as far as how we keep up with everything else. And it sucks, but it's what we have to do in order to continue to operate at a level that will benefit you at the end of the day.
You know, many of us are fortunate that we can afford $1 a day. But I tell you, there's a lot of people cannot even afford 50 cents more a day. And I'm saying this as there's a lot of people like that. Many of my friends who are very old, when their spouse, when their spouse die, they see their $900 a month income gets slashed by half. Because both of them are old, they got about $1,800 a month, and they rent the share room so that they can make ends meet. So don't base it on people who have jobs. But then anyway, there are many ways to do this, right? Of course, I understand when things broke, we have to fix it. If thing in my house, if my car broke, I have to find a way to fix this, and it takes money to fix a car. But I can borrow money. I can do many things. So is this the only way to do it? There's many ways. We can borrow money like bond, right? So I just don't feel, this is why I don't feel comfortable with this. I understand we need the money. But if we put the sole burden, 100% of this burden on the resident, I think that's not something that I can support.
One question for maybe the attorney or public works director. So any manipulation of this plan, the way it's given to us right now, we throw it out and start over. Is that what you're telling me?
No, we still have all the base data that we could work with. It's just, what we're trying to do is to remain in a financially solvent position so that we're able to qualify for bonds. We have existing bonds that we're already paying for, and we don't want to get in position, Kingsley, where they could possibly call those bonds.
I guess what I'm asking is, can we approve something that's 50% of this, or over 5 years, or 75% of this? But you're telling me no.
Unfortunately, we spread it out the most that we possibly could.
Okay.
When this whole process started, I knew that we were going to be asked this question, can we spread it out? This rate study is for 5 years. We spread it out for the entire 5 years. So we already started, on, maybe I should have come here with 3 years and then made it 5. But
so even
but
if we took an asset out of the projected capital improvement and still did 5 years, we can't do that because it's a whole new study. I mean, if you take, I just don't understand why I'm the elected official trying to make a decision. I've got this study that no one questions, and it's presented to me, and I can't change it as a council member and for the people to do the right thing.
I understand what you're trying to do and understand what you're trying to say. Let me pull up some slides to kind of give you an idea of how the rates are structured, because what you seem to be concentrating on is the capital improvement. And what we have is a capital improvement charge. As you can see, the current charge is $1.47, and then for the next year, it's gonna double and go up to $3, and it goes all the way up to $7. But out of the entire bill, the majority of the bill, like the additional 70% of it, is the water costs and the O&M. So while you could theoretically reduce some of the capital improvement, the O&M is going to go up at the same rate whether you like that or not. And we are selling 33% less water. We cannot even forget capital improvement. We haven't done that for 2 years. So we're spending zero on capital improvement right now, and we are not able to even keep up with our O&M costs and our water purchasing costs right now. We are eating away at our reserves as we speak. So it's just, I took over as interim water manager, 3 years ago, Sammy? And I've been working on this water study for at least 18 months, maybe longer, about that. So it did take me a little bit of time to figure out we were in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing on it. Don't take it like that. I would have liked to a little earlier, we should have promoted people to use more water after the drought was over.
Right.
But my concern is, because the reason I'm bringing this up, as the water bill goes up, obviously people are going to use less water still, because the bill's going to go up depending on how much units they use. And I know most of the people in District 2, for instance, have large lots. They still have grass. Now they can change that and do all that, but most of the time, we end up with just a dead lawn, and nobody's improving their lawns. They're just leaving them dead because they can't pay the water bill. They can't, and if we hit them with 166%, I mean, I go percentages when I look at things, and you could say it's $1 here, $1 there, but it's still a large percent increase of what people are used to paying, and that's my focus. And I'm sorry to be argumentative, but that's what I'm here for. And no disrespect to anybody that's done all the hard work. I know, and we've been involved in this for a year, looking at it. But I can't believe that I can't manipulate something to make it work for the people. Now, and I don't even like to raise fees or taxes on anybody, but I realize that we need to have a new rate increase. But I think, like what Councilman Bowie said, I can't vote yes on this tonight the way it's drawn up.
The other thing that I would like to echo Councilman O'Neill is that, yes, I remember about a year or two ago when we voted to encourage people to use less money. And I did ask the question, the water, I mean. I did ask a question then that how do we know that this will save us? And we're told that, well, it will save us money because we are not going to be, hit with penalty from the state. And so the residents listen to us, and they save the money because they believe that, save the water. They use a lot less water because they believe that, it will help them. So they go along, they participate, and now we are going back and hit them, and they are going to be double hit because the more they use, the less water they use, the more they have to pay for that willingly to work with us. I thank you, Councilman Member O'Neill. I know this is not supposed to be, I wouldn't say it. Thank you for looking out from the resident perspective. I can understand Mr. Murray and Kingsley that it's difficult, right? You have a very hard jobs. You need to maintain a good services. If you do not provide good water, good infrastructure, resident will complain. And you got a lot of complaint about, my road have so many potholes. Why didn't you fix it? And to fix it, you have to have money and the resource to do it. So it's a difficult job on your department and on yourself. I'm not criticizing you. So I have to put myself in your shoe. Finance chair and the public work chair and the city manager shoe to make sure that you have enough money to pay the staff. But I also have to put myself in the shoe of the resident. So I think there got to be a better way to deal with it rather than move forward with this. And I probably said too much more than I need to say. So I will not change I don't think I have enough information now. I will not change my mind, and I respect my colleague's decision, whatever it comes out to.
I just want to make sure that yes or no vote, that all of us are mindful of the burden that it may or may not cause each individual resident. I think that goes without question here. We all are going to have an increase in our bills as well, and I am, like everyone else, I have a budget. I can't go over and beyond that in some crazy fashion, or it will directly affect my life and my family. So we all are mindful of that. I think it's important. Mr. Murray, what is exactly the percentage that they will see in an increase in their bi-monthly bill?
Like I said, it varies throughout all the different uses. So let's take a look at an average residential bill.
Please, again, that'd be great.
And I'll put that slide back up as soon as I find it. Residents, that's high.
That's it.
Is that the average? Okay. This is your average every 2 months bi-monthly bill for an average water use throughout the city. So currently they're paying $106.31. That'll go up by $3, and then it'll go up another $11, and then $2, another $2, and then another $2. So over 5 years, you're looking at a $20 increase.
The first year, Stephanie, is
Mhm.
2.7%.
Okay, 2.7%.
922 minus 106.31 divided by 106.31.
Glad somebody's good at
Basic
math here, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, give us,
Somebody's
give us
gotta
the
do-
5-year, give us the 5-year percentage.
Cumulative?
Yeah, and this, keep in mind that this is only the city portion of the bill, right? This is not what the resident will see in their bi-monthly bill.
That is not correct. This is the entire bill.
You know, just devil's advocate. I mean, I would, you know, in the summer months, that average bill I'm looking at on my screen is going to be $200. And I've done the math and the percentage, if you calculate the percentage increase, it's going to be about $250 a month in the summer. Now, it's going to go down, maybe be 106, it'll be 140. But just to hit the residents with that, we didn't do the work 4 or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and now we're hitting them with this huge increase. And it's not huge. I could absorb it. Yeah, I can absorb it. But the average the average homeowner out there, the family, they're week by week. They're barely making it. They're barely making their mortgage, their rent payment. They're barely making the utilities. Even though the economy is great, God forbid something happens in the economy. And my fear is that I've been around a long time, and whenever you have a tax, it's not a tax, it's a rate increase or a tax, that'll never go down.
Can you bring up the cost of an apartment unit? Because I'm sure, you know, when you increase the fee to the apartment owners, it will be passed directly to the tenants.
That's
So
correct.
Can you take a look at that, please?
Could I first clarify something for Mr. O'Neill? This is an average, which includes winter and summer, and it's also bi-monthly, so that over 5 years, it's a $10.15 increase.
I get it. I know we here in Garden Grove, we say monthly. Everybody's
I know.
guilty of it
I make the
because
same
we get it
mistake.
every month. And that's why I brought up earlier. Maybe the mindset, the psychology, we need to go to a monthly statement instead of bi-monthly and make the numbers work for the administrative because people get paid weekly.
You pointed it out yourself earlier. That would add cost.
I understand, but
that would add administrative cost.
But maybe we can.
It would double the cost of billing and collections.
I know,
and
but
whatever
maybe we
for-
can counter
whatever-
that.
Whatever that factor is.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but maybe
Sorry.
we can counter that by people not getting, a lot of people don't get paper statements anymore. Maybe we're still a little bit old school on our water billing. We have online payments, but we still have a lot of paper going out in the mail. I don't know.
We already are set up for online
like this one right
automatic
here? Yeah.
bill pay.
Oh, I
I do
know.
it on all my properties.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
We're being devil's advocate for the residents. We're trying to have discussion on a public hearing item. We're trying to get something done. I'm in favor of a rate increase. Which I don't like increases of any kind, but I know that we have to do it. But what I have before me tonight, I won't have a yes vote on.
I have a quick question. Mr. Murray, for the $10 discount for the senior discount program?
No, the senior is for low water use, so that was average water use. And, of course, you have to be a senior and be on the CARE program. So, you know, we were looking at some fairly high increases for the low water users. They seem to be affected the most. But for a senior, like I said, next year, they're only looking at about a 26-cent increase per bi-monthly billing cycle.
Okay, and that roughly about 500 senior, right?
Yeah, well, that's how much we have money for. They have to come and apply, and, you know, we've got to check all that stuff.
Well, let's take a look at some profile that I believe there are more than 500 in our city. Like people who are 70 years or 80 years old. A couple of them, husband and wife. Sometimes only one of them survive. They stay at one unit apartment. Their income is about, you know, if he's only by himself, their income is about $900 a month from their retirement benefit. And let's say they have 2 kids, already grown up, have family. Each of them will give them $100 a month so that they can survive. And God forbid one of them get laid off, so the children can no longer help their parents. There's a lot of them like that I know of in Garden Grove. So this is why I felt, very difficult for me to do that. And I am afraid this is going to hit a lot of families, not just 500.
Sounds to me like that example would qualify under the resolution
but-
we established for a low-income
Correct,
senior discount.
but we only, Mr. Moray said that he think he have enough money for about 500 family, not a lot more.
That's correct. It all depends on how much we collect on that, whether we can either include more folks, but still, the criteria's been set. You have to be 65 or older, have to be a low water user, so if they're in that apartment, then they're single, then they're definitely going to be the low water user. And you have to be a resident and be on the care program. So that individual that you spoke about will experience a 26-cent bi-monthly increase next year.
Thank you.
Well, I hope I'm just overly worried for them, and hopefully things will turn out okay. But at this point, I don't know if we need to carry this debate further.
I'll chime in a little bit. I'm deeply concerned about the condition of our city's aging infrastructure. And I think, kind of despite a vocal minority of very price-sensitive ratepayers, which I think the most substantial portion of which we have covered with our consent item 4A, which adopted the resolution protecting low-income seniors for a discounted program for water, specifically to address this aspect of this item. I think the majority of our ratepayers expect that when they go turn on their faucet, clean water comes out reliably, right? I think they expect that that we provide water service without disruption, and that's just an absolute expectation. Costs do go up. The water we buy, the water we import, whatever. I mean, costs go up. We have to pass those through. If we don't pass those through, then all we're really doing is subsidizing the water district ratepayers' rates with the general fund's taxpayers' dollars, right? So we're basically, the taxpayers are paying it one way or the other. So it seems to me, when you put it in that perspective, and I know there's semantics here that get confusing, but I mean, we wear a certain hat when we're representing the water district. We represent a certain hat when we're representing the city and the city's general fund. If the water district does not stand on its own 2 feet with regard to having a sustainable budget, it just means the city will be subsidizing it. So I think it's imperative that we make the water district stand on its own 2 feet. I think it's imperative that we adequately address our infrastructure issues with the water district. And as described by the Public Works Director, we have put a complete halt on any capital improvement projects for the last 2 years. That's very dangerous. That's scary. Tuha's example I thought was profound because it's simple and you can picture it. I mean, you have to maintain your own house. If you don't, then catastrophe happens, and it's going to cost a lot more later if you don't maintain it properly today. So to me, I think it's an unfortunate reality that costs go up and we have to pass that through. Fortunately, our property values have also gone up substantially over those years while rates were not being raised adequately. And it's always a difficult decision to raise rates, and that's why it's not done every year or on as regularly as it probably should be. And so you go for periods of time where there's no increase, and then there's what appears to be, a higher percentage of increase. To me, 2.7% on a static look is not unbearable. It's CPI. It's the cost of inflation. It is what it is. So I don't love raising rates anything. I own property. I have to pay these increases. I don't love that, but I think it's irresponsible not to set up the water district to be able to fund itself on its own 2 feet. Kim said it.
One last one. Just because you said something that I didn't even think about it in that context, as far as if we don't do this water increase and then the city is subsidizing that with the general fund, which is paid by taxpayer dollars. We just had someone speak during public or oral communications at the beginning of the meeting complaining about not doing enough for our police officers. So if we're using taxpayer dollars
Right.
on something that could be standing on its own 2 feet, that's money being taken away that could potentially be used to provide more police officers or public safety in any capacity. So to think about it in that dynamic really just solidified where I stand on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Just to comment, there's other ways to pay for the infrastructure. You know, it's not an end-all on this rate study. I mean, I totally agree that we need to have a rate that covers the cost of the water, but I just don't believe that the increase, that steep of an increase was warranted at this point. So, we have money that we could borrow within the city, like we're paying 6% for, you know, like Councilman Bowie said, you know, why wasn't it 0%? You know, why, we could have saved that money there and you know, you can manipulate it any way you want. We do need to support infrastructure, but I just don't like, you know, having something to present in me where I can't tweak it, and just have to vote yes or no, and I'll vote yes or no, and that's what I'll have to do, but I just can't believe that we can't manipulate it. We've done pass-throughs. We've always done pass-throughs. I mean, nobody will complain, I don't think even the public, about if the water district is charging us a certain rate, that annually or biannually we can't raise the pass-through rate. We've done that in the past. Just because it's attached to a 5-year agreement, it's like, oh, if you don't do this, the world's going to end and our tanks are going to explode and the pumps are going to stop. That's not true. We have other ways of doing it. This is the best way to do it, but is this the right way to have this percentage at this point? And I agree with the mayor, you know, most of us up here and maybe a lot of you out there can afford to pay it, but I know there's a lot of people out there in the city of Garden Grove that can't sustain that 25% increase over 5 years or whatever on the base rate. They already probably gave up their cable TV. They're probably paying for a basic internet plan at $30 a month. You know, but again, water is very important. Electricity and water, without those two, you're going to die. So it is very important, and I support a rate increase. I just don't support what's in front of me tonight. Is that a motion?
I'll introduce the motion. I'll introduce the ordinance for a first reading to enact the adjustment in the water rates and changes authorizing future automatic adjustments in the water rates to account for adopted increases or decreases in wholesale charges the city pays to other agencies for water.
We have a motion?
That is a motion.
That was this motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or call to vote?
I think we discussed it out.
Yeah. Okay, call to vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes, with council members Bowie and O'Neill voting no.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to item 6, items for consideration. We have one item, 6A.
Item 6A is an approval to accept fiscal year 2017-18 supplemental law enforcement services account, SLESA funds. And Chief Elgin is here to give the report.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the good news is we're accepting money here.
Thank God.
The purpose for me being here tonight is to gain city council approval to accept funding from a supplemental law enforcement service account for fiscal year 2017-2018 for approximately $269,705. as well as any growth funds that may be distributed to the city at a later date. The police department receives an annual allocation from the state through the county supplemental law enforcement services account. The city's allocation for the 17-18 is approximately $269,705 by statute. The monies allocated shall be expended exclusively to provide frontline law enforcement services. These funds are used to make purchases that directly support the delivery of frontline law enforcement services, such as electronic citation devices and mobile computer terminals for patrol vehicles. There is no impact to the city's general fund, and it is recommended that you approve the acceptance of these funds in the amount of $269,705, as well as any additional fiscal year 17-18 growth funds distributed to the city after July 1, 2018. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions of the chief?
Just a couple, just basic questions. Equipment, you've given examples. So do we have a long-term plan or any plan for the future? I mean, there's always a need for new equipment and updated equipment, so.
Right. Yeah, these are the funds that we use. These are kind of supplemental funds that we use for the extras. And due to mandates through the state, for instance, the citation writing machine that we currently use, that was a mandate through the state of California. And of course, like all budgets, they continue to shrink. The amount of dollars coming from the state of California is getting lower and lower. So we utilize these funds for frontline. So it could be MCTs, it could be tasers, it could be more citation machines. So this is the stuff that helps us kind of get over the hump.
Do we know what our plans are in the next 2 years, 1 to 2 years?
I think these funds over the next couple of years are going to be slated to help replace our IVS cameras in the car system. I think that's what the bulk of these funds will be used for, in addition to maybe some equipment funds such as replacing tasers or as they age out, or possibly fixing MCTs or things of that nature.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Mayor and City Attorney, I'm not feeling well at all. I'm feeling even sicker and more pain. I have an important item that I would like to bring up to the council for. I would like to agendize it for the council to approve at the next council meeting. Can I ask to do that first before I need to accuse myself?
Yeah, if the mayor will allow it.
Absolutely.
Council members, Senator Janet Nguyen and Assembly members Karen Chu and Ash Kaura have proposed a bill at the our state Congress to create a statewide school curriculums on the Vietnamese American refugee experience. I think this is a very good program. It's a good chunk of history that we would like to make sure that people are aware of the plight of the Vietnamese refugee. We have a lot of Vietnamese refugee or Vietnamese American who became resident of Garden Grove. I would like to ask our council to agendize it so that we can discuss to see if we could have a resolution in support of this bill, and if so, I would like to do that at the next council meeting.
Yeah, I'll second to put that on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Second.
First?
He made the motion.
He didn't make a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So with that, I'm sorry, but I feel I feel like I want to throw up. I'm not very well. So I would like to accuse.
You gotta vote yes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, can we call the vote?
I've opened it.
There we go.
Feel better, Pat, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hang in there, bud.
rest.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Sure, take whatever you need, or else.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, I'm okay now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, take care, bud.
No, that's not mine.
Keyboard cord, oh, that's
Keyboard
okay.
cord, yeah. Tissue.
Yeah, take care, bud. Okay, we will go back to, well, I guess we're actually on matters.
Yeah, we're on 7A.
Yeah, we're on matters 7A, and so before we get to council matters, we'll go back to 7A, yeah.
Okay. All right. I was planning on an introduction, but that's all right. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, on November 28th of last year, the council approved a 10-year license agreement with Focus Media to install, maintain, and administer advertising bus benches in the city's public right-of-way. And I believe that Michael Culver from Focus Media was, oh, he's still here. He's a trooper. Yeah, you definitely need to put in some for the OT for that. He is here from Focus and available. The agreement provides for the installation of up to 175 benches, and there is a map attached to your report with the proposed 140 locations. And for our staff, they want to go ahead and switch to the screen. I have that up for them, so the residents can get a look at all of the blue dots. For the installation and of those up to indicate 175 the benches. And there is a map attached to your report with the Yeah, proposed I'm sorry. 140 There is a map attached to your report that's being shown right here. For them, so the residents can get a look at all of the blue dots. The installation and those indicate the benches. There is Oh, a wow. map attached to your report. Okay, well then, let's not do that. There is a map attached to your report that's being shown right here. I didn't realize I had that kind of powers. I'm sorry. I don't know what that is, so. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, let's not do that. Maybe we need to go away from the screen and go back to live action.
Yeah. It's all you, Bill.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. All right, so forget the map. Let me find my place here, excuse me. The purpose of the benches, besides providing bus users a place to sit, is to serve our local businesses with cost-effective advertising, which will support the city's Buy and Garden Grow program. In addition to that, the city will receive a portion of the proceeds, which are estimated to be maybe $24,000 a year, $24,000 a year. In December, a light green color was selected for the benches. Currently, Phase 1 of the project has been completed, and 60 of these benches have been installed. Several local businesses are advertising, and they are pleased with the service. During our last council meeting, a resident expressed the following concerns regarding the benches: a dissatisfaction with the green color of the benches, a questionable advertising content, and there's an attached photo that we're not going to go to that's a part of the report. The quantity of the benches, that they were not thrilled with how many there were. And finally, the inconsistent scheme with the existing bus shelters and the benches. So staff has reviewed those issues and offers the following comments with regards to the colors. The cost to change the color is a little bit over $15,000. So whatever you decide on that, we can work with it. With regards to the content, I'll have the city attorney make a few remarks on that, if you don't mind.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, mayors, members of the city council, our municipal code already regulates the content, and because advertising has First Amendment implications, there is limitations as to what we can and cannot ban. So what's in the municipal code already is subject to, or it's already the most that the city legally can impose without violating, or at least a court finding that it's a violation of someone's expressive activity. So for that reason, in looking at the different advertising, it doesn't seem to violate, the limits of what we are already regulating.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. The other issue, with regards to the quantity of benches, there are approximately 280 bus stops in the city. 100 of those are blue shelters. Currently, there are 70 city-owned benches, and most of these benches will be removed with this new contract. The proposed 140 benches is under the 175 allowed. I know I'm giving a lot of facts. The net increases of the benches, when you consider all of that, will be just a little bit over 100. So we are adding 100 new benches to the city when everything all shakes out. With regards to the inconsistent scheme, this will be reduced once the city-owned benches are removed, which will just allow the two colors. The blue shelters are under contract for 4 more years, and should the council wish to change the color of the shelters, it will cost about $65,000 and take a few months to complete. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
So, go ahead. Go first. A quick question, immediate question, I should say, is there's some issues with compatibility. There's blue next to green. Do we have identified a number of how many of those locations there are?
Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all of those particular locations. But
Yeah,
I think there's 27 of
Yeah,
the
let
green
me-
next to the blue, I thought.
I'm just recalling that, we did have an email on that, didn't we? Almost got that
Mr.
in.
Mayor, and to the council members, while Mr. Murray's looking up that number, the one sort of consistent thing that we heard from a lot of feedback was that concerns with the blue bus shelters that we have, there's about 100 of them, and the locations where we're putting green benches right next to the blue shelters. And that's where I think I understood most of the concern, if there's a way to try to be consistent with those two colors, whatever those colors may be, might be, might feel better to folks than trying to have two different colors right next to each other. So that's something we've talked about internally, and I think that's the 27 that we've talked about.
So there's 100 shelters, but there's only 27 locations where we
green.
currently have the green
Yeah.
next. Okay.
Where the green would
That's-
be right next
Because
to
I know
the
the mayor
blue
was like
shelters.
thinking the same thing I
Correct.
was. So there's 100 shelters, but
Oh,
at
get it.
present, we only have
Maria gave me
27
the-
green next to
I
it.
get it, I get it,
Right?
yeah.
If I may, I'm sorry to, is there any way at this point in time to take those 27 benches and put them elsewhere? Or do they need to stay by, is that a contractual?
I think,
part of the
I
agreement.
think all the benches have already been painted green.
No, that's fine. I just mean,
The ones that are next to
can
the
the green benches
blue.
be moved somewhere else so that they're not next to the blue bench or next to the blue structures for right now, since there's only 27? Or would that be hindering the contract and what we have agreed upon?
No, maybe we could put them somewhere else. But,
Well, Mr. Kohler, would you care to comment on that?
yeah, come up to the podium here.
We'd be happy to do whatever we need to. How long would those 27 not be at those locations? We have commitments for some of those already sold to advertisers.
Okay.
And it would kind of, if we had to take those 27 and not have those for a long period of time, it would definitely a pinch, but
Let me go back one step and say, because just collectively in our conversations leading up to this and conversations with staff, I think we feel like we got duped a little bit. I think we perceived that old, ugly shelters, benches, whatever, were going to be replaced with new stuff that was going to clean up blighted situations. When you put brand-new, bright, shiny green benches right next to old, faded-out blue stuff, it looks worse than it did before. And I don't think any of us sort of saw that one coming. I mean, maybe contractually it's there or whatever, but who would have thunk that you guys would come in and just put new benches next to existing ugly old stuff? I thought it was replace out the old ugly stuff with fresh new clean
Yeah, I'm
benches.
sorry if there's
Clean up a
confusion.
blighted condition, create a revenue source for the city. That was sort of the premise I bought into.
Yeah.
And I feel like we got duped on that regard. So when I started seeing them go up and see the bright new green next to the faded out 30-year-old blue, I was like, what just happened? And are the blues going to get replaced, or what's going on with that? I didn't realize that was the program we were signing up for, so.
Gotcha.
Let me ask a quick question, because we're talking about the shelters. You said 4-year commitment on those remaining?
Yes, it's actually, the shelters, the blue shelters are all run by a different company.
Right.
And that is Clearwater, and we currently have Clear Channel, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's,
We're
never
past
mind.
that- We're
It's
beyond
all-
that item. You don't gotta go back to that.
It's getting late, I apologize. So with Clear Channel, and we have 4 years left on that contract, and to redo those those shelters is, like I said, they estimated about $65,000.
No, yeah.
Do you have a sense of what happens with all the old blue ugly stuff after 4 years? What happens? That contract ends, and then what happens?
Well, then that is another issue where we bring it back. We could extend to Focus the ability to pick up and maintain shelters. Or, we could have them, we could try to renegotiate again with Clear Channel, but Clear Channel doesn't seem to be concentrating on this type of business.
Right. Would they want to get out of it early?
There you go.
Is there a win-win situation here where you guys take over the whole thing and they say, by all means, do it? Or no? I mean, I don't know.
We could certainly pose that question to them. We just asked them how much it would cost to repaint their shelters.
They've abandoned over 1,000 shelters throughout Southern California in the past 5 years, so they might be interested in that. I also just want to mention, there's over 7,000 advertising benches throughout Southern California, and none of those are the same color as a bus shelter. They're just not, and it would look better if they did go together. Like in LA, there's 6,000 that we put up there, green next to different colored shelters, but I'll definitely say the light green next to the blue doesn't look that attractive. I mean, together. The light green, I think, standalone looks gorgeous. I think it's bold, I think it's futuristic, I think it's sharp, but I agree with you that it doesn't look that great next to the blue. I mean, unfortunately, so we'd love to help with solution, whatever we need to do.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this thing too much, but I think there needs to be some consistency there one way or another that we get to it where we, at least with the ones where we have the blues next to the greens, we need to resolve that. And if there's a clever way to do it by engaging Clear Channel and saying, would you guys be interested in?
We could certainly pursue that.
That'd be an option. That's
That'd
a
be
good option, I
great.
think. To look at that first, and then I think we still have a couple other options, put blue benches, or paint the other ones blue next to the shelters, talk about, and then.
If we went there, I would suggest going the other way.
Yeah,
and saying,
no,
let's paint the ugly old blue stuff to match the new
Sure,
green stuff, even though there's been.
Because we need to
There's
implement.
been complaints about the shade of blue and the bright, but it is, or I'm sorry, of the green. But it is what it is, and they're there. So we either paint new green benches flat, ugly,
No.
faded out blue to match the blue,
No.
30-year-old blue bus benches, or we paint the blue ones to match
I
the
totally
shiny
agree,
green.
because even the blue ones are really in bad shape.
They're in really bad shape.
So I think we should talk to Clear Channel.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah,
patient Mayor Pro Tem.
Just another question related to Clear Channel. I assume that has some revenue stream to the city as well? Okay, so we want to include that when we
Yes.
look at that. We
To
can talk them.
the council member, I think that revenue stream is about $100,000 a year.
Okay, so if we take out those shelters, then we're losing that as a revenue
Well,
stream.
we were going to replace them.
Yeah. And, would Clear Channel be up
Right
for
now.
doing something, and/or possibly, would they be up for painting them and subtracting the revenue or
said,
something, so we don't have to come out of pocket to paint them or something?
Well,
to
would
that
you want them all green, or would you just want the ones where they're next to the benches, the 27 locations?
I think my personal preference would be to do them all green and just get there, so that
What's
we
the-
have consistency across the city.
Yeah,
Honestly, let's do this once and not,
Since we're talking about change of color, and we're talking about the 15,000, that would just be to repaint the new benches, not the structure, not the Clear Channel structures, but the new benches. If we repainted all of them for 15,400, just so that I'm understanding, that's not out of our pocket, that's out of the revenue we would get. Is that correct?
the future projected
future
revenue from
projected
this
revenue
program.
from, that's how this money would be, is that?
Yes, correct.
And then I probably said this when in the agenda item before, how did we get to the number of 174 benches? Where did that number come from?
It's just based on an estimate, based on the number of bus stops, what has been done in other cities this size. Our current projection is to have 140 in the market, even though we can go up to 175.
I see.
We have, to the council member, we have, so it's, I think, envisioned a two-phase project. 60 of them have been installed so far. Phase 2 would be another 80. We actually had conversations, I know the company wanted to put a few more along Harbor Boulevard up in the Resort District, and of course, they already have their own marketing brand along the corridor, the Grove District corridor. So, they're refraining from kind of confusing things along Harbor Boulevard. So that's an example where they won't be going.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Another question, if I may?
Yeah, go for it.
Just the durability, and we have a 10-year agreement with you right now?
Yes.
So what's the durability of the benches you have there, be it the paint? Will that fade, or how does that work? What's the coating process?
Let me tag on to that, because my question, I think, was similar in terms of, you can answer these both at the same time, is how are those new green benches painted? Are they powder coated? Are they whatever? And if the blue benches were to be painted, would they be painted in the same process, or do they end up just getting sort of brush painted out on the street to match, but they're not going to wear the same over time?
Yeah, they are powder coated, and the price that we gave you is to re-powder coat them so they will last a minimum of 10 years.
What about the existing blue shade structures? If those were painted to match the green, would they be painted in the same fashion? Would they wear the same, or would they be just like brush painted and they'd look good the first year, and then by the second year
Unless they're powder coated, it's going to fade.
So the prices you estimated?
Powder coating.
Based on powder coating? Okay, that was my point, yeah. Cool, thanks.
And did you get your question
Yeah,
answered?
that
Okay.
answered it. Thanks.
So from my perspective, is like, I don't want any money that we do spend to change anything. Obviously, we want to do it right this next time. We want to get everybody on board and do it right. But let's spend the money in the right place, like first contact Clear Channel, see if they want to get out of the contract early, see what that would cost, whether Focus could pick it up and we could change the structures right away. If that doesn't happen, then of course, I think the next option is to go green on the shelters, or at least the ones that are, next to the benches. But obviously, I think, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, you do everything at one time. Even if it costs a little bit of money up front, we trade that for the revenue, but get it right the first time. I want to do it right the first time. So.
Keeping in mind, too, and again, I credit you for the best of intentions on how this came forward, and the way this got botched up had nothing to do with you. So just to clarify that, Sean O'Neill brought forward this opportunity, his relationship with these guys said, this is an opportunity to go clean up a blighted situation, right? These old, ugly blue benches that we have, and replace them with new benches or whatever, so they would swap out, provide new benches and a new revenue stream for the city. So it sounds like a win-win coming in or whatever, right? So what we're talking about here to remedy the look and feel of this is we're going to address the blight part. We're going to make it all look coordinated and make it look the same. And we're going to do that by cutting into some of the future projected revenue that we were otherwise expecting to get, but now we'll
that's okay.
give some of that back.
Spend it up front.
But to be clear, we're not coming out of pocket at all. So there's no city dollars being expended so far to create the benches that are there, nor to repaint bus stops to match the benches and that sort of thing. There's no out-of-pocket costs. It's just coming out of future revenues that we otherwise would have gotten from this program.
Right.
May I ask a question? Michael, would you be interested in taking those over? Just
Taking over
the
bus
shelters?
Yeah, I just would need to look at the revenue and things
Okay.
a little bit, but yeah, we definitely have an
That's what I
interest.
figured. If Clear Channel's trying to get out of that business and they're abandoning and they're doing all that kind of stuff, and you guys are trying to move into that space, I mean, there may be a win-win here where we get these things painted for free.
Yeah.
You don't like the green.
If they want the business, they would change it to a pleasable color.
Let's first approach Clear Channel and let's see what the dynamics look like. If they're willing to play ball and they're willing to get out of the way, and you guys are willing to step into that space, then let's analyze the economics and ultimately
Yeah, I think
the
that-
fine-tuned
I
decisions
think
like
that would
color.
dictate where our next step is. At least
Yeah.
find out,
Yeah.
before we start painting things, let's find out
Right.
if Clear Channel wants to get out of that market. If they don't, we'll readdress it and figure out a color, or, well, stay with our color, or whatever. We'll have another discussion, a later
So are we staying within phase one then for now until we hear back from Clear Channel and so forth? Are we, before we, I mean,
Well, I was going to speak for Michael, but I know from their perspective, they've
don't wanna-
already sold advertisement for these benches because they had an implementation.
phase two benches
They had
as well.
They had an implementation schedule for the whole lot. So whatever we do, we try to hurry it up so we can at least accommodate the advertisement that's been sold. Otherwise, we're starting to lose more revenue that we're probably going to have to pay for.
will we see advertisements on the current benches that are out there fairly soon then, since?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, actually, in the next 7 or 8 days, there'll be over 30 or 40 new advertisements, local, regional, and national, on the bus benches.
Okay.
Okay?
So that we're not having to, this is just a discussion, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, okay, so.
So I think, so we agreed to have Bill go back and approach
Yeah.
Clear Channel and then come
I
back
think
to us.
you guys have enough direction, right? You don't need any formal.
Well, I want to make sure, I want to be real crystal clear on what you would like us to do. So what I hear council saying is you'd like Bill and the Public Works staff to go to Clear Channel, see what their long-term intentions are. What do they think about the future of those 100 bus shelters that are out there? If they're indeed trying to get out of the business, what we would do is agendize this, come back in 2 weeks, and share with council anything that we found out in our conversations with Clear Channel. And in the meantime, Phase 1 has been deployed with the green benches. We've asked Focus to kind of put a moratorium on doing anything with Phase 2 right now. And does council have some wishes about that?
I think sounds good. I mean, first and foremost, check with Clear Channel, explore that whole dynamic.
As soon as possible.
Ultimately, try and get us to the most creative, cost-effective way to get uniformity amongst all of the bus benches and bus shelters.
I don't think taking the color off the table, I mean, I don't necessarily want to do that. I think we should maybe discuss that at some point in time. But again, I think it's a process. I know that there's maybe not hitting it all up at once, but I don't want to take a color change off the table, though, for down the road.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree. That's why I tried to word that carefully and just say.
Understood.
Uniformity of
Yeah.
all the bus benches and bus shelters, whatever color that may ultimately be.
Well, what I hear council saying is we will get with Clear Channel. We'll try and get some quick answers back for you. We'll be back at the next council meeting to talk about that. We'll keep Phase 1 in place for a couple weeks until we can get ready to get some more direction on any future phases.
Thank you.
One thing, Mr. Culver, are you okay with holding off on Phase 2 for the next 2 weeks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Really great of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, madams.
Madam Clerk.
Matters from council members.
Turn over here.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, yeah, just a couple items. Hopefully, we can address Bill, don't go away. Bill Murray, stay there. I want to compliment you on the work you've done on the west end related to the freeway and that intersection there, the improvement, the cleaning up, and it needed it, and thanks Public Works for taking action on that. The unintended consequence is the landowner, the gentleman came up and spoke about his property. Could you check and see what potential damage happened to his area over there, or maybe you already have?
Well, I reviewed the photos, and apparently the contractor mistook our direction, which was to repair that back screening, which was in pretty bad shape. They went ahead and just put screening on the side fence. So there was obviously some miscommunication and misunderstanding there. And in doing so, there was some issues created on his on that side fence Personally, I think that you could clean off the rust. What he did is to put the tarp up, he just took some like baling wire, for lack of better terms, and wrapped it around a couple of his white plastic fence posts. And that the rust that's on baling wire just rubbed off on there, so it is going to require a little bit of effort to clean that off. But I don't think that it, permanently damaged anything, but it definitely was an issue. And the last that we had seen, the owner was removing, well, he had taken off that tarp in front of the officer, and then the owner was putting on the screening that you see when you get off the freeway off-ramp.
Again, I want to point out the intentions were good. To clean up, aesthetically more acceptable, pleasing, and that. So I compliment you on that. This happened to work out this way, that the screening occurred on the other side. The main intent was the public area, the freeway area, Valley View area. When you get off the freeway, that is, needed some cosmetic improvements. And so thank you for doing that one. I think we can remedy the other issue that came up on the other side. So I just want to bring that to the attention of the public. If they go over there and he has a complaint, if we looked into the complaint, we've acted on it, that's good. That was one item. Second item is I'd like to place on the agenda, kind of brought it up, touched on it with the earlier agenda item on the reclassification of the code enforcement position. I'd like to ask the council consider agendizing at the next council meeting, review or discussion, maybe even action related to looking at the municipal code, ordinances related to code enforcement. Emphasis may be on commercial code enforcement. I was looking through the ordinance book recently. There's some, I think it could use some updating. And with a new emphasis on code enforcement, I think it'd be a good time to go through the ordinances, see what's up to date, out of date, what we could add. What comes to mind is I think I saw or heard something about clotheslines on commercial areas. I don't know if that's still applicable. As an example, maybe remove some archaic language or items back then. New items I think they could consider would be potholes and commercial parking lots and this and that. Maybe some facade, looking into that. So I want to agendize at the next council meeting. That's why I want to put forward a motion to agendize that item at the next council meeting.
Yeah, okay. If I may, I'll just chime in and say I'm glad you're bringing that up. I think a lot of our code enforcement efforts are geared towards residential, and we should give more code enforcement attention to the commercial properties. We've got a lot of large blighted commercial properties. We try and entice these folks to come forward and redevelop or reposition or do something productive to avoid them just going into a state of blight and disrepair, but instead there are property owners who are hard to bring to the table in that regard, and we end up with graffiti and transients and just sort of bad elements that go with it that if people maintain their properties properly, probably would not occur. So I would wholeheartedly back kind of more of a focused effort on commercial code enforcement.
Okay.
If I may, just throw in my 2 cents. I know that there's a lot of restructuring happening in the code enforcement department. And I do agree that the commercial side of it is definitely a key component and very important to the overall look of the city and the safety, et cetera. But we need to make sure that the residents are happy with the way code enforcement is performing in our neighborhoods every day. And I'm not sure a lot of people can say yes to that that's happening. So I want to make sure that we're doing one thing right before we move on to another. And I don't know that so I want to make sure we're very clear in how we word this and how this would potentially restructure certain elements of our code team.
Okay, I don't want to get into discussion of this. I just
Yeah,
want
I'm just-
the motion.
just
Yeah,
in-
and I hear you loud and clear. My only motion is related to reviewing the code, municipal code related.
Fair enough.
That's my motion. But I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, just wanted to put it out there.
There's also other possible considerations like outsourcing of those services
Absolutely. I
that I've
think
been
it's-
approached about in the
there's
past.
a lot of ways we could go.
Agendize.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking forward to it.
Exactly. So we have a motion and a second to agendize that item for the next council meeting for discussion.
Okay.
Call to vote.
Motion, excuse me, motion received, 6 yes votes with Councilmember Bowie absent.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're still going?
Apologize. I don't mean to monopolize this, but I do have a couple things, just a couple more quick things. One is, we had such a successful event with the Youth in Government Day. I would like to possibly consider at a later date some emphasis on September 17th as being Constitution Day. Civics, civic engagement, young people, I think we could maybe do something with the school district related to, we have a very outstanding civics program. I know at Pacifica and other high schools throughout the city. So I just like to emphasize that particular day. It gets little attention. It's a very important date. It relates to the U.S. Constitution. We celebrate the 4th of July, so I'm a history nut, and I like that kind of stuff, but I think they could get a value out of it. Maybe we could refer that to the Parks and Rec Commission or pass it on down. I think we could make it not costly. We could have an essay contest. We could, all sorts of things. We have, again, I want to emphasize we have very civic-minded high school programs out there, and I think they could be a part of that. So I want to bring that up now for a future date, maybe refer it back to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So that's a thing I'd like to pursue down the road. In September, we'll be here before you know it, too. I just want to bring that up for possible consideration or a topic for a future date. Last item is Wallet Hub. I saw the survey done. Wallet Hub gave a survey of the happiest cities in the nation. 100,000. Did anybody see this?
No.
I saw it on the internet. Look it up. Look it up. But there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Garden Grove was listed for populations over 100,000. We were listed as the 26th happiest city in the United States. I think it was 10th. Correct me on these numbers, but 10th in the city of in the state of California. Another notoriety. People are happy to be living in Garden Grove.
Cool.
And it was very. I read all the methodology. It looked scientific. It wasn't one of these fluff surveys or something like that. It looked legit. It had academicians doing the survey, doing the census. They use census data. So look at it out there. We're a happy city. And I think we expressed that as a city council, as staff and citizens. So I just want to bring that to light. That's it.
It wasn't just because we bought a table at their awards ceremony. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Okay. Just a couple things, couple thank yous. Bill, don't go very far. I got another thank you for you. I want to thank the public they seem to be getting more in tune with the city website and the application. They're more in tune with how to report crime or how to report shopping carts or mattresses. And Public Works has been doing a great job of jumping on those because they get an email when you go on the app. And they can get things taken care of sometimes in 24 hours or even less in one day. So today they took care of a thing really quick. We had a homeless person situation the police had to deal with, and then Bill his group had to come in. They took care of that, and then there was another mattress and refrigerator on the other side of the street. They took care of that the same day. So thank you for doing that, and thank the public for getting involved. We need everybody's eyes and ears out there in this day and age right now to combat all these issues. So we need your help. The city, when you talk about staff and the council, we can't do it without you. We need your eyes and ears to be letting us know what's going on. And we're doing everything we can. We had the speakers on, the crime. We're well aware of that. We're trying to deal with it. Budget, we want to hire more officers. Everybody's familiar with the incidents in the last 2 weeks of what's been going on, life and death issues with the police department. So we apologize if it takes an hour to get there for something that happened, that there's no critical, urgent emergency. We will be there. We will get there, and we'll get there as soon as we possibly can. These officers go from one dispatch to the next, to the next, to the next. They're running from place to place all day long. So please bear with us on that. We're working on it. And then I wanted to see if I could agendize an item that one of the speakers brought up tonight, just for discussion in about 4 weeks, maybe April 10th, I think we have a meeting. If my colleagues would allow it, just for discussion on the sewer lateral issue, so we can get that cleared up. It's been kind of out there for a while, and I just want to either one way or another have a little discussion, and then we can put it to rest. So what I'm looking for is discussion on the sewer lateral, on what it was prior to 2006 or whenever it changed, and what it is now, the difference. I think we need to address it, or at least have some discussion on it. So if we could agendize it and talk about it. I have no preconceived whether it would happen or not. I want to see And I haven't been clear on what it was before and what it is now, and I'm concerned about homeowners and residents picking up a $10,000 to $20,000 tab from the curb to the center of the sewer, no fault of their own. Now, if their own tree disrupts their sewer, and I don't want to go into that, but I just wanted to agendize that if we could. Does that need a motion?
Do we need to agendize it, or can we just sort of direct staff to?
Can we put it on
kinda-
for discussion?
Yeah, I don't know that we necessarily, I want to know the answer also, but I don't know that we necessarily need to agendize it here. I think it was just
Okay,
in
so if you
response to a
want,
public comment that was made, can we ask staff for kind of some more clarification on what that's all about?
Okay.
so under your policies and procedures, individual council members can ask for an item to be put on the agenda for discussion, but there will be no action taken. If you want action taken, then the council needs to vote on it to agendize it for an action item. So if it's only discussion, we don't need
Yeah, it's
the
only
council
just.
to vote on it. And just so you know, this will be a sanitary district item, and I know I worked on those regulations back in 1999. Those regulations have not changed.
Yeah, that's the first and foremost thing, is can we just get sort of
Yeah, we'll
clarification
put it on
on
the agenda
the
for
merit of
sanitary
the comment made and how, and what's changed and when and how it works?
Yeah, otherwise, it just filters out there, and I just want
And,
to.
and the sanitary district only meets once a month, so
Yeah.
the next meeting would be at your next
April
regular
10th,
council
or
meeting.
regular
No, it
meeting.
would-
But again, I don't think we're necessarily asking for it to be agendized. We're just asking for direction. I mean, you could give it to us in a memo, right? I mean,
I'd rather have discussion.
Okay,
While
okay.
we're here on the dais.
okay.
And again, just discussion, and what the actual verbiage is from, if it was changed, I had a speaker that was 35 years in the water department, and he said it changed in 2005 or 6 as far as the responsibility. And if that's not true, I want to know, but I need to see it.
Yeah.
And I need to have you produce it for me, and then we can look at it, and if we want to go anywhere from that point, then we can. go.
Then we can
Yeah.
agendize it as
We'll
a,
agendize it for the next sanitary district meeting,
Okay.
and we'll be prepared to provide you the regulations.
Appreciate it, thank you.
sounds good. Councilmember Tuhoen.
I just have a few things. Just first of all, I would like to commend Bill Murray and the Public Works Department with the staff. For the past month, we have potholes in District 3, and with field work order submit through the apps, as well as I make a call, you guys fix it within 3 to 4 days. The turnaround time, very good. So I would like to say thank you to that. And the second, I would like to say thank you to Ms. Daivu, the traffic engineering. Very quick response, especially to the increase that the constituent call and ask about the traffic stuff, and he responded very quickly. So I would like to say thank you to him. And the third, I just want to say thank you to everybody who attend tonight. Thank you for your input. You are our ear and eyes and help us to do our job better. And last, I would like to say happy birthday to my baby. He turned 5 today. And happy birthday to everybody who's having the same birthday today. Thank you.
Councilmember Kim Wayne.
The Buena Clinton Youth and Family Center's True Neighborhood Teens program is seeking donations for their upcoming PB&J project. You can donate loaves of bread, peanut butter, and jars of jelly now through Friday, March 23rd at Garden Grove City Hall or the Buena Clinton Youth and Family Center. I would also like to thank Councilmember Chris Beard, because I heard through a little birdie that I was nominated for an award, and I got it, so thank you.
Congratulations, yeah. Cool.
And
You deserve it.
Thank you. And lastly, I want to wish my dad a happy early birthday. My dad and I have had such an interesting relationship over my 26 years of life, and raising me has definitely aged him. So I want to thank him so much for all the sacrifices that he's made, leaving his country, leaving his family behind, coming to the United States, and ensuring that at the end of the day, I had everything I needed, maybe not everything that I wanted, but with that, I learned a lot of valuable lessons. So thanks, Dad. Love you.
Councilmember Klopfenstein.
I have just a couple of things. I have a vector control meeting this week. Usually as we move into the summer months, spring and summer months, they start to get a a little heavier with information, obviously, about mosquitoes and West Nile virus and so forth. So just a reminder to residents to please dump and drain standing water, especially as we're having these little rainstorms come through. It doesn't take very much water to breed mosquitoes, so be mindful of that. And if there's any information to report back, I'll do so at the next council meeting and obviously throughout the summer. And then I also wanted to bring up some new information about the Huanglongbing, HLB, Asian citrus disease. It's been detected in Anaheim, it's obviously being detected here in Garden Grove, and now it's in Santa Ana as well. So there will be a public meeting held on Wednesday, March 14th. It's tomorrow from 5:30 to 7. I believe it's at 505 East Central Avenue in Santa Ana. The California Department of Food and Ag will be there to answer questions. If you think your trees are infected, if you see something that doesn't look right, please report it. It's very important to the health and welfare of our citrus industry and even our backyard citrus trees that I know we all love. A pest hotline has been formed. It's 800-491-1899. Thanks.
Thank you. City Manager Scott Stiles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, speaking of Parks and Recreation, I didn't know if you were going to mention this, Mr. Mayor, but on Friday night, our Parks and Recreation, the California Parks and Recreation Society is going to be recognizing our Community Services Department at the Hyatt Regency in Long Beach with their annual award for a lot of the work that they've done with Reimagine Open Streets, that sort of thing. I believe the mayor and I will both be there to show support for the department and all the work that they're doing. And then secondly, I would just want to remind everyone on the 23rd, we'll be having our annual planning retreat with all of the council members, and we'll be posting all of the appropriate notices for that meeting as well. That's all I had.
Thank you. I believe we have another closed session item after this, right? That's correct, right?
We do have a special meeting of the Garden Grove Sanitary District on a closed session item, but it's getting late. We can postpone it for 2 weeks.
Is it lengthy, or should we just?
No, I only need 5 minutes.
Well, why don't we just do it? I was just going to notice that we're going to go do that, and then we'll come back and report out as necessary. But for practical purposes, we'd like to adjourn the meeting tonight in memory of Dennis Malugan. Dennis was a longtime resident of Garden Grove and a Kiwanis member who passed away this past weekend. Dennis joined Kiwanis on March 12, 1969. During his 49 years in Kiwanis, he served as president and charter member of multiple clubs, was lieutenant governor for Division 4, the home division of the Garden Grove clubs, became a lifetime member of the Greater Garden Grove Kiwanis Club, and was the club's current Project Eliminate chair, helping raise thousands of dollars in support of eliminating neonatal tetanus throughout the third world. He is survived by his wife Cheryl and multitude of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. So we will adjourn in his honor. Like I said, we'll actually adjourn to closed session, and we'll come back and report out and officially close as necessary in a little bit. Thank you. Adjourn.